Here's News Radio 970 WFLA's Bob Lassiter.
9 minutes after the hour of 12 noon. What else? Tuesday, July the 19th, 1988. Lassiter with you on News Radio 970 WFLA. You've had the finest training possible in your profession, right?
I think I've had the finest training, yes. I have a philosophical background from Temple University, good philosophical background at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in Cincinnati, and, of course, a rabbinic degree from the Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion. I've attended Jewish Theological Seminary and have attended, of course, universities in Israel.
And lots of professional experience?
10 years.
10 years? That's a lot of professional experience. Okay. And you're a pro, right?
I'm a servant.
You know, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. You're a professional purveyor of religion, correct?
I am a servant of God.
Well, you're also a professional purveyor of religion. I mean, you accept money for it. You get paid for it. And that, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I am paid to do that, yes.
Why can't you prove to me there's a God then? You've had the best training, you've had experience, and you're a pro.
I think it's evident that there's a God. I know there's a God, in fact, because
But you can't prove it to me. Why not?
I was communicating with God this morning, and the only reason, Mr. Lassiter, that you don't know that there's a God is because you have not opened up your heart. You have not opened up to pray 15 minutes a day, 6 months, like I asked you to do 2 years ago.
Did you talk to the teddy bear like I asked you to do?
You have not prayed 15 minutes a day, 6 months with an open heart and asked God to be part of your life, and I think that's one of the key reasons that you have not experienced God.
See, you promised to talk to the teddy bear. You promised you'd try that.
Are you denying that I have had an experience of God, or that other people who are listening right now have had an experience of God? Are you denying that?
Well, I don't deny that you're telling me that you think you have.
And you think all these other people have had, and you think the strength I've gotten to get through the troubles that I've had, and the power and the insight that God has given me is all an illusion.
No, I don't think it's an illusion at all. I just don't think you know where it's coming from. It's coming from deep within you, and you deny your own strengths. Mr.
Lassiter, one of the things I did in my background is get a thesis done on the subject of psychoanalysis and religion, which I'm happy to discuss with you. There are several flaws in that theory. Freud said that everything comes from something called the great unconscious.
Freud's not here to defend himself.
Oh, of course you're not going to let me finish. Freud said everything that we
I'll let you finish.
Everything
but
comes from something called the unconscious.
I'll let you finish, but first of all, I'm not speaking about Freud. I've never even read Freud.
I'm sure you haven't, but you speak in his terms. Freud said everything that we feel and do comes from something called the unconscious. And then Freud was asked at a lecture, could you prove to me that the unconscious exists? He said, no, there's no proof of that. So you're telling me, Mr. Lassiter, there is no proof of God, but you're basing your whole life on something called your whole philosophy on something called the unconscious.
Didn't they teach you to listen?
To which there was no proof given by its founder, Sigmund Freud.
Didn't they teach you to listen at rabbinical school and at Temple University and so forth and so on? That's not what I said at all. I said, you can't prove it to me. Why not?
They taught me it was rude not to let a person finish, too. I'm finished now. Go ahead.
Well, it's also rude to put words in people's mouths.
Well, you go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, why can't you prove to me there's a God?
Because
you're a pro, right?
I'll tell you why. Because your heart is not open to God. And from the time that I've known you...
Why don't you give me an honest answer?
I'm giving you an honest answer. From the time that I've known you, there is a bitterness, an anger that prevents you from truly knowing God.
No, there's a bitterness and an anger about people who go around professing something that they know they can't prove, and then mocking people literally, like myself, because I want some proof.
I don't think that there are thousands of, quote, philosophical proofs for God, and there are thousands of, quote, philosophical proofs that there is no God. And the discussion philosophically of whether there is or is not a God is totally and completely inconclusive. The only way a person can know that there is a God is not by going to school and not by getting degrees, but by having their own personal experience of God. If you don't have a personal experience of God, then there is no reason to believe that there is such a being. But
isn't what you're trying to tell me?
But to have that experience, you have to have an open and humble heart.
Aren't you trying to tell me, in other words, that the only proof of God is that you want there to be one?
No, that is, again, Sigmund Freud, who you never read, but you like to quote. He said,
no, I don't quote him at all. This comes out of my own little head. I can
God
think too.
is nothing. Oh, well, you probably read George Bernard Shaw.
No, I've not read Shaw either.
God is nothing but a projection of a father figure, a wishful father figure on the heavens. That is wrong. That is wrong. It's a nice theory, but the fact is that there is a loving, compassionate, caring God who, to the 25 or 30 or 40,000 people who are listening now, is available to them if they will turn their hearts to Him, if they will pray to Him, if they will be open to Him. That God really
There's a loving, compassionate, caring God.
Yes.
You want to stand on that one.
Yes.
And that loving, compassionate, caring God has been good to you, Jan Bresky?
Yes, wonderful to me.
He's helped you financially?
No, I've had financial problems.
Well, but in the past you've had, some financial success, right?
I've had tremendous
attribute that to God?
I think that we make certain decisions in our life. I give God the credit for giving me the strength to survive a terrible disease. I give God the credit for giving me strength to survive terrible personal problems, poverty or lack of money. I don't know. I'm not sure it's poverty. But I give God the credit for giving me the ability to get through all of these horrible things in my life, because God really does care about me.
And you've disappointed your God, I assume, along the way.
I have disappointed God many times.
You have fallen short in His eyes.
Absolutely.
Numerous times.
Many times.
Will probably do so again in the future.
I'm sure of it.
But this loving, compassionate, caring, marvelous God will still take care of you.
Absolutely.
He'll still bless you.
That's the beauty of it.
Where the hell is He in Ethiopia?
Well, it's very interesting that you sit here with a big contract and a very comfortable guy, and things seem to be going well with you. And the people who have suffered, people like Elie Wiesel, who I met, still believes in God, and people who've gone through the concentration camps, who I have met, believe in God. So I would ask, who the hell are you to question God when nothing of that nature has ever happened to you, Bob Lassiter?
When nothing of that nature has ever happened?
No, have you ever been in a
statement.
Have you ever been in a concentration
camp? No, I've never been in a concentration
camp. Have you ever been starving to death?
How do you know? I mean, you've just made an assertion of fact.
I mean,
nothing like that has ever happened to you, Bob Lassiter.
Who the heck are you when these people have gone through this, people like Elie Wiesel and people like survivors of the Holocaust, and they believe and they worship and they thank God for what God has given them? Who are you to question God?
Well, I wonder who they are to thank God for saving them when they choose to ignore the people that didn't make it through the concentration camp in terms of this marvelous, loving God. When they choose to ignore the fact that the vast majority of people on the face of this earth today live in substandard, subhuman conditions.
And whose fault is that?
But no, God smiled down on Elie Wiesel and gave him a nice house in Los Angeles and a couple of nice cars.
First of all, I'll tell you who they are. They're the people of faith. And secondly, those people who have survived that and have gained the faith are better people, Bob. And they don't question God the way that you question God. They believe deeper in God than ever.
Are better people than what?
Are better
than me?
I think better than you or I put together. Having survived that and been able to produce something good in their life after suffering through something like that, they're better than you and I put together.
But Bob, you still choose to ignore this. You still choose to ignore that innocent child in Ethiopia, huh?
You want to start with this Ethiopian crap? Let's get some food.
Ethiopian crap?
Yeah, let's get some food.
Not crap to the people who are living there.
Hey, just a second. Let's get some food and send it over to Ethiopia and help these people.
Well, where are you going to get it from, Jan?
Let's get
Where are you going to get it from, Jan?
Right here. Right here, the stuff we throw away in the garbage. And let's get Mayor Bob Urich to build a $30 million shelter for the homeless. Damn baseball in St. Petersburg. Let's build the shelter for the homeless anyhow. I don't care.
Why doesn't God speak to his heart?
Oh, God doesn't have to speak to his heart. The people of faith are going to speak to him. and they're going to put him out of office. What is this nonsense? We're going to make someone rich with $30 million just to bring baseball down here, and once in a while we'll put some homeless...
It's over, Jan. It's gone. You know, that was a couple of weeks ago. You have to come up with another one now.
Let me tell you something. If it's over and gone, then the judgment is on us, the people who live here, who rather have some guy hit a little baseball than a place where homeless, starving, suffering people can live for $30 million in our own area.
We have $30 million worth of homeless people?
Where is God? Let me ask you a question. Where are we? Never mind God. Before we start blaming God, where the heck are we? What the heck are we doing with our lives, and what the heck are we doing with this country and in our community? You know,
Do you think that let you off the hook for Ethiopia? Do you think that lets your God off the hook for Ethiopia, tap dancing around about baseball stadiums? Yeah, tap dancing around the question.
There's enough food in this country to feed everyone in Ethiopia.
There is not.
There is.
There is not.
There is. There's stuff that we pay people to plow grain under the ground, not to harvest it and send it to poor people.
When was the last time we did that?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know, but you're going to make such an assertion.
There is enough food in this country to feed people in Ethiopia, to feed people in India. What is missing is a very interesting thing.
There's enough extra food in this country to feed a country this size a couple of times over.
There's almost enough food in this country to feed the people here who are starving. Never mind Ethiopia. There's enough food in this area to feed the people in Clearwater and
Seems to me, if memory serves
Tampa
me,
who are starving.
If memory serves me, there's 750 million people approximately in the country of India.
The only thing, there's enough, if we had our priorities straight, that is what is missing. If we started helping people and helping farmers instead of building bombs, then things would be straight. Don't blame God for us screwing up.
And the two most abundant crops in this country, by the way, or actually the three most abundant crops in this country are wheat, soybeans, and corn. And the corn is animal feed.
So, what do you want? I'm not in agriculture, Bob. Bob.
Well, I can tell that from some of the things that you've said.
Bob, we have a screw-up in our priorities. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I appreciate we've got to screw up in our priorities. Yeah. I was asking you about the screw-up in your God's priorities. Don't tell me about your shortcomings. We're here to talk about His.
God says, I've given you life and death. Choose life. We happen to want to choose death.
Jan, why don't you give me an honest answer and just say to me, Bob, I don't know. I can't explain it.
I can't explain what.
Why he blesses you and everybody else who happens to live in this country and apparently turns his back on the majority of people on the face of the earth. Why don't you just tell me, I don't know, Bob?
I think we've turned our back on people in need. Never mind God. I think what God would want to do and has
Well, now, wait a second. If he favors one and he doesn't favor the other, he's turning his back on them, isn't he?
No.
Oh.
We've turned our back on people in need. We were taught by God to help the people in need, and we don't do it. Stop copping out. You got the big salary, you got the big car.
We were taught
you
by
have the
God.
big contract.
We were taught by God. When did God do that? Was that before or after he had the children of Israel slaying other nations for no apparent reason under the sun and stealing their treasures? Was that before or after that?
There are sparks of the divine. There are sparks of God in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in the testaments of Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, and all the religions of the world. There are sparks of God in their books. And in our book, the Jewish Bible, one of the sparks of God that I find is you are given a choice between life and death. Choose life. People choose to smoke. People choose to overeat. People choose to ignore people in danger.
So I guess God has the same priorities, and he chooses to ignore people in Ethiopia, huh?
We have free will, Bob, to make decisions and to change.
Well, I guess he has free will then, too, to bless some of his creatures and not others.
He's blessed all of us by the opportunity to be close to him.
Oh, but some of us here on the face of the earth, he gives 60, 70, 80 years of misery to.
Well, misery's a state of mind, Bob.
No, misery's a state of the belly.
Well, I tell you what.
Misery's a state of the skin when you have open sores on it because you don't have proper medical care. You don't have proper sanitation. That's misery. That's not a state of mind.
We don't have the ability to change that. We don't know what proper sanitation is. We can't raise more crops. We haven't chosen as human beings to build bombs instead of helping people. Are you telling me that?
Are you telling me that he's given these people a life of misery so that you can feel guilt?
No, not to feel guilt.
Then what's he doing it for?
God has given us the opportunity to make this world.
Didn't he know that we were greedy SOBs over here and would just let those people over there suffer? Didn't he know that?
No, we have a choice.
He didn't know it.
We have a choice to be greedy. We have a choice to be ugly. We have a choice to do horrible things. But we also have the opportunity to do wonderful and good things. Real quick, Bob. I was in the hospital last night getting a transfusion. And in the bed next to me was a young girl who took 1.5 hours of her life to feed her grandfather dinner. Every human being is capable of doing miracles. Every human being is capable of doing great things for God and for other people.
Oh, gee, that's really inspiring, but it still doesn't even come close to addressing the question, does it?
I told you, you want to feed the people in Ethiopia? Then we have the ability to do it. We have chosen not to do it. We have chosen to build Star Wars instead of doing that.
Well, let me see. According to the book that you have in front of you, we've been around for about 5,000 years, right? Right. According to the book you have in front of you.
No, the book has no date how long we've been around.
Well, you can go back. You can go back and you can go through the chronology.
By the way, the book I have in front of me is what Christians call the Old Testament, what Jews call the Jewish Bible. It is a book that you quote often but have never studied. Is that correct?
What do you mean I've never studied? You mean I've never swallowed, perhaps?
Have you ever taken a course in higher or lower criticism of the Bible? Do you know what I'm talking about, by the way?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Have you ever taken a course in higher or lower criticism?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. So, in other words, you are now going to question me on a book that you've never studied.
No, I'm not going to question you on a book I've never studied. I'm going to question you on a book that I've read.
Have you ever read it in the original, Hebrew or Greek? The Hebrew for the, of course, the Old Testament.
The original.
New Testament.
You've never seen the original.
Have you ever?
The original
read
doesn't exist.
Have you ever read the compilation that became known as the Jewish Bible or the New Testament? Have you ever read that in the original language?
What original language?
So, in other words,
what original language?
We've established.
You mean the oldest one around?
We've established.
Which is not the original, is it?
We have established you have no credibility in this.
No, we haven't established any such thing. We've established your credibility is in serious jeopardy because no original transcripts exist.
That's not true.
And yet you have implied that they do.
There's an original transcript of the book of Isaiah. That's the Dead Sea Scrolls. That shows you how little you know.
The book of Isaiah, the Dead Sea...
Well, yes,
what's the approximate age of these Dead Sea Scrolls?
About
2,000 years old, right?
No, they're about 2,800 years old.
Copies of copies of
I'm not sure.
Of stories that were handed down.
No, the book of Isaiah may be, the ones we got out of that cave, may be the original written at the very time that Isaiah lived, yes.
Maybe, but just a moment ago they were.
Well, I wasn't there 2,800 years ago.
I'm aware of that. 26 minutes after the hour of 12 noon, Rabbi Jan Bresky, my guest. 12 noon, Vanessa. Rabbi Jan Bresky in studio with me. So let me see. You want to give God credit for everything that's good, but none of the bad. I mean, typical Jewish. I'll take the responsibility and the guilt for everything that's bad.
You're terrible. You're the least anti-Semitic person I've ever met. So don't do that.
That's not anti-Semitic. I mean, you Jewish people joke amongst themselves about always, guilt, living with guilt.
I think I can only say and testify to what God has done for me. And God has helped me in ways that I can't even express, not only to get through every single day, but to overcome some of the biggest obstacles I've had to face.
You don't know it was God?
Oh, yeah, it was God. And God also has given me a certain amount of wisdom, and God has blessed me in many, many different ways. And that's all I can say in terms of knowing God, in terms of proving it to you.
Then who's responsible for all the bad stuff that's happened to you? If somebody's responsible for all the good, there must be someone responsible for all the bad.
I'm not sure. For example, let's take the fact that I have an illness, okay? I don't view that as particularly bad. I mean, I'm able to get to the show today. I'm able to converse with you. Well, that's bad. No, I'm able to get to the show today. I'm able to converse with you. So what is so terrible about the fact I have a disease? I mean,
I didn't say there was anything terrible about it. You're the one that said a lot of bad things that happened to you in your life, right?
Well, it's helped me to understand people who are in the hospital, who are sick. Having a lower income has helped me to understand what it's like to have a lower income. So, in many ways, people would say, it's terrible. I mean, Dick apocalyptic moron this morning was talking about this. That, how much better off everybody is, and we still have 30 million homeless people out there. But I'm not sure what bad is in terms of our relationship with God. There are terrible things that happen to us. But if we're close to God... and
who's responsible for those terrible things, then?
Sometimes us, and sometimes they happen.
Evil spirits, maybe?
No, I don't believe in evil spirits.
No evil spirits?
No, I don't believe in evil spirits.
No devils?
No devils. Yeah, I've seen people who came close to the description of the devil, but I don't believe in devils. I think that...
Funny, God did.
I think that between the terrible things that happen to us and the good and wonderful things that happen to us, we maintain a relationship with God. In the good times, we thank God for all the blessings He's given us, and in the bad times, we have a constant companion, a constant friend, a constant presence who is with us, who will help us get through those very, very horrible times.
So how come you don't believe in devils when God did?
Why do you say that God believed in devils?
Open the first page of your book, you'll see.
Fine.
Remember the serpent?
Oh, I don't know. The serpent is not a devil. The serpent it's a story. It's a story about...
it's a story?
Sure, it's a story.
It's not true.
No, it is true.
God didn't create the world?
Oh, it's true in the deepest sense. Yes, God did create the world.
God didn't create man and woman?
Yes, God did create man and woman.
So let me see if I have this right. God created the world, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And, the apple trees and the elephants.
Absolutely.
The giraffes and man and woman.
Not from nothing. There may be evolution, but God is ultimately responsible for every act of creation.
So everything in that particular book is true except the devil part, which, is just not convenient for you.
If you will find me the word devil in the Jewish Bible, I will believe that it's there. But since you don't know that much about the Bible, you don't know that the word devil does not appear in the Old Testament.
Well, if you want to play semantics with me, that's cool. Just put me on alert that we're playing semantics, and we can do so.
Bob
the
Lassiter,
evil creature that was sent by God to tempt Eve into eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. That is a
Christian interpretation of the story. To me, that story is about a choice that we make, whether we want to be wise and have knowledge and take the responsibility thereof, or whether we want a perfect world, which may turn out to be very, very dull because nothing.
So, in other words, the book of Genesis is a story that may or may not be based upon fact.
It is a religious epic of the highest proportion.
Well, that's a beautiful answer, but, let's see if we can't come down to a yes or no. The book of Genesis is a story that may or may not be based upon fact.
The book of Genesis is true. It's not history.
It's true.
Yes, it's true.
There was a talking snake.
No.
So then it's not true.
No, it's not history. The book of Genesis is true. There is a loving, compassionate God who created the world.
Well, is Mother Goose true?
It's true that one should not kill their brother. It's true that one should have faith in God. It's true that one should not steal from their relatives. All those things are true.
Wait a second.
All those things are true.
One shouldn't kill one's brother.
Absolutely.
Under any circumstances or conditions?
No, there are circumstances and conditions where one has to defend themselves. That is
from bodily harm or the threat.
Absolutely. That is the philosophy.
A little bit further on.
That is the philosophy.
A little bit further on in the book, God says you should kill your brother and your mother and your father and your children and your wife and your uncle and your neighbor if they subscribe to a different religion.
No, it doesn't say that.
It does too.
It says that you should execute the heretics who are among you. And I don't agree with that. And I don't consider that...
You don't agree with God?
No, I don't consider that every single word of the book is directly from God.
Which version do you have there, the pick and choose?
No, I have the version that has within it things that are directly from God, like the Ten Commandments, like Leviticus 19, which
version of the Ten Commandments?
The Exodus version, I have things.
Well, no, there are two versions in Exodus. Which version?
Leviticus 19, which says, "You shall be holy," which I consider to be directly from God. I consider to be the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, to be directly from God. I consider Buddhist philosophy of non-harm to be directly from God. I consider some of the Hindu mystical writings to be directly from God.
How could the Ten Commandments be directly from God if there are two different reasons for observing the Sabbath?
What's the difference?
What do you mean, what's the difference?
Take one day in
Well, why did he give you both in one time?
I can give you 100 reasons for observing the Sabbath. Why do you get so much joy in picking a book that is so sacred to people, that has helped people live such a moral and good life? Why do you take such joy in picking on that book?
Oh, John, I quite agree with you that the book has helped quite a number of people lead a moral and good life. But the book is also directly responsible for misery and deprivation and some of the most horrible crimes ever committed by mankind that affected millions and billions of people.
If the Bible and religion never existed, because of people's basic greed, they would kill each other because of the color of their hair or the types of shoes that they wear or anything else. The fact of the matter is...
I beg your pardon, there are many people that existed and didn't kill each other that never knew of the Bible.
Oh, really? Who was that?
Virtually everybody on the face of the earth.
Oh, come on. The world was in total chaos before the Judaic civilization came on the world.
The world was in total chaos?
Absolutely.
Before the world was in total chaos in South America?
The biggest event in Egypt was your death. The biggest thing in Mesopotamia was to take food from your children and walk up a ziggurat, a twisted pyramid, and give it to the gods. I mean, you tell me that's the way civilization should progress? You tell me that young virgins should be thrown off cliffs in South America?
Didn't your God ask that food be taken from the mouths of his children and be burnt on an altar?
No.
Oh,
he
really?
asked that the excess, the zeev, the overflow of your bounty...
No, he asked that the absolute best...
That's right.
The unblemished...
That's right. That's what he deserves.
That's what he deserves.
That's what he deserves. But he never said...
Your God happens to have a particular love for the smell of burning flesh?
No, he says he hates it. In the prophets, he says he can't stand it anymore. He wants people to behave themselves.
He can't stand it anymore?
Yeah, he says he doesn't...
What did he do, change his mind about it?
Yeah, he said people are misguided, that the sacrifices are not what he wants. What he wants people to do is act in a moral fashion by helping other people. That's what he says in the prophets.
He says a lot of things, doesn't he, John?
I don't believe that every word of my Bible or the New Testament or the Buddhist or Hindu Bibles, I don't believe that every word is directly from God. I believe that the thoughts are from God, but they have been filtered through human minds, and therefore there are conflicts and there are areas of the Bible that don't make sense for our generation, but made perfect sense for former generations.
God didn't know there were going to be additional generations?
I'm sure. But there's certain things that are...
Well, let me see.
There's certain eternal thoughts in that book, like being holy,
see if I understand.
You shall love the Lord your God, you shall
want me to understand about the book?
You shall not murder.
Do you want me to understand about the book?
I'm trying to teach it to you, but
no, I don't think you are.
As usual, you're not listening.
No, I don't think you are.
As usual, you don't listen.
In essence, what you're trying to do is keep me from asking embarrassing questions, but that's okay. I have a very, very tenacious thing with me.
And a very closed heart. To really opening your heart to trying to understand the book.
Well, maybe my heart is closed, but my mind is open, which is a little bit more than I can say for some people. Let me see if we can go back and understand the purpose of this book.
Are you questioning my intellectual abilities or whether or not I'm so obsessed with what I'm doing that I cannot think openly and reasonably?
I believe that would be a reasonable assumption on the part of a reasonable man.
So you are saying that somehow I have a psychological illness.
If you wish to choose to call it an illness, I would call it a problem.
I have a psychological problem.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen of Tampa Bay, call in your psychological problems to our new psychiatrist, Mr. Bob Lassiter. He hasn't been trained in religion, but he's an expert in religion. Hasn't been trained in psychiatry, but he's an expert in neurosis. Welcome to the new Bob Lassiter.
Well, when I see a spade, I tend to call it a spade. Let's go back and see if we can understand this book. This book is filtered through man's mind, but from God. And it is necessary to comprehend and learn lessons from that book in order to please God, right? Would you agree with that?
I think it's important to study the book for the wisdom that's contained in it.
What about the nonsense and folly and absurdities that are contained in it?
A person should speak out against those. If they find that in the book...
But this is what God sent us as his guide.
I think that the most important thing is not a book. I think the most important guide in people's lives is to have
Jan, I didn't ask you what you think. I asked if that book was sent as a guide from God.
One of the guides. Yes.
One of the guides.
Yes, and I think that
What are some of the other guides then?
I think the most important thing is a personal relationship with God, a one-to-one relationship with God, where God's Spirit can enter you, where you submit your spirit and your soul to God.
Where God's Spirit can enter you.
Yes, and allow God to direct your life.
In other words, you can read the book and pick and choose from it what you like and decide that what you don't like is not from God and what you do like is from God.
Well, God didn't give you a lobotomy, and He didn't give me a lobotomy, so I think we have that ability. If He wanted us to be unquestioning robots, He could have made us that way. But He gave us free will to question, to research, and even to open our hearts as an agnostic, someone who doesn't believe in God, to open our hearts as someone who's gone far away from God.
Is not someone who doesn't believe
or
in
someone
God.
who questions God's existence. I think I know what an agnostic is and the difference between an agnostic and an atheist. God has given us the ability to open up our hearts and minds, and no matter who we are, no matter how low we are economically, no matter how backward we may be, no matter what, God is available to us. Every one of us, everyone listening right now, God is available. And I think that's the key essence of what religion is all about.
Well, let me see if I understand this. God is available to you?
Yes. And to you, Bob.
And you have accepted Him?
I have chosen in
yes
my
or
life,
no? Have you accepted Him?
I've chosen in my life to have a relationship with God, yes.
And God's available to me?
Absolutely.
And I have not accepted Him?
You have chosen not to have a relationship with God.
That's an incredibly arrogant statement. How in the hell do you know I haven't?
I hope you have.
You can say with a high degree of accuracy and be dead right that I have chosen not to accept your God. Because I find that what's contained between the covers of the book that you're leaning on right now to be horrible.
You know that I teach that each person finds their own way to God. And I hope that some way off the air that you have found your own way to God. And if you have a relationship with God, I'm very pleased for you, Bob. But if you do have this relationship with God, you should not spend so much time making fun of God and putting down people who have faith.
Wait a second, making fun of God and putting... No, I've never made fun of God in my entire life. And in terms of putting down people of faith, that is what you do for a profession, sir.
How's that?
The talking snake? Remember it didn't exist?
I put down people...
There are hundreds of millions of people that believe firmly in their heart that it does. But you call it, hey, just a story.
I think that each person has a right to interpret the Bible in their own way. And if a person finds that every word of it is true and finds God that way, then that is the way they have found God, and that's fine with me.
Truth, sir, is truth. That there is not truth for somebody and truth for somebody else, if indeed we're talking about fact.
The fact is that God is real, and the fact is that we make a decision whether we would like to have a relationship with God or not.
Well, no, the fact is that you are no different than me.
No, I am
No, sir, I shall demonstrate it to you. The fact is that I choose to look at the book and say this is all nonsense. You choose to look at the book and say, well, a lot of it is nonsense. While there is someone else who chooses to look at the book and says every single word, every comma, every smudge on the page is just the way it was. You sit there and ridicule other people.
I don't base my faith solely on the Bible. The bulk of my faith comes from my direct relationship with God, my direct experience of God's love.
You see, you're doing it right now.
God's compassion and God's ability to grant wisdom and God's pressure on my life and on other people's lives to try to make this world a better place.
You're doing it right now. There are hundreds of millions of people on the face of this earth who take the Bible, Old and New Testament, as well as a great many people of your own religious persuasion who take the Old Testament as literally the Word of God, as literally an account of history.
If they find God that way, then I rejoice in their faith.
Why do you mock their beliefs?
I don't mock their beliefs. I have a different opinion, but I've never made fun of their beliefs. If they find God...
Did you call their fables and stories nonsense?
I never said that. I never said that.
There's no nonsense contained in the covers of that book?
I think there's a lot in the book, but I don't find any of it nonsense. Nothing. I don't find anything in anyone's holy books nonsense. I think that's sacrilege, and I think that's a put-down, and I resent that. I would never say that about someone's religion.
Do you believe that God finds a woman's menstrual flow to be absolutely disgusting?
No.
Is that nonsense?
No, I don't
Is that
think it's
nonsense to attribute that to God?
No, I think it's not nonsense to send a woman...
Is that nonsense to attribute that to God?
I don't think it is nonsense for a civilization that lives in the desert to send a woman who's menstruating out of the camp for
Is it nonsense, though, to attribute that to God?
I think it's misdirected. That's my
come
opinion.
on, Jan, it's nonsense.
No,
you know it is. It's not nonsense.
Why are you
think there's a possibility God might be appalled by the sight of a woman's flow?
I think God has higher things to worry about, like corks running into each other in space, like people dying in the streets of Ethiopia, who he can perhaps not help materially.
Well, wait a second. You don't think it is important? You don't think it is important that for thousands of years, men influenced by that very passage have looked down at women? You don't think that's important? That's not important?
I think it's important that women in many religions now have the right to be rabbis and priests and ministers.
It's more important that corks don't collide in space than the fact that billions of women have suffered because of that careless one line? I think it's known, Jan, as being hoisted on your own petard. I'm Jan Bresky, Rabbi Jan Bresky, my guest in studio. You see, Rabbi...
Okay, Bob, you win. All right? Bob, no, my turn. You win.
No,
Bob, my turn. You ask me questions.
I'll just turn off your microphone, and then I'll have my say, sir. This is my program.
Turn off my microphone.
That's exactly what I did. That's precisely what I did. You see, Jan, the point is...
And you don't let people answer.
I gave you 30 seconds of dead silence.
You don't make yourself look good.
Would you like to leave the studio? Would you like to leave the studio, sir?
Sure, show.
That's right. Now, as I was saying, the entire point is, I am sick and tired of taking heat because I don't believe that book. When the people who do profess a belief in that book do so with a pick-and-choose attitude. What they choose to believe, hey, that's cool and neat. What they choose not to believe, hey, that's cool and neat. And in doing so, ridicule people who pick and choose different sections of it to believe or not to believe. I lead my life a hell of a lot closer to that book than the majority of people who profess a belief in it. And I resent very, very much you as well as other people who choose to believe the book in looking down their nose at me. And if I choose to speak out on my beliefs, that I'm some kind of a bad, horrible person, but it's perfectly all right to ridicule, to mock me for my beliefs, to ridicule and mock someone else for beliefs based upon the same book that are different. No matter how nicely you choose to cloak it. We're all doing the same thing, sir. Are we not?
I think you have some deep personal problems.
Are you a trained psychiatrist?
I've had counseling courses. I think you have some deep personal problems. I think that what's more important to you is to get on with thousands of people listening and talk to them about winning and showing them how intellectually smart you are, which you've got half a dozen professors that grind you into the ground, but we'll go into that some other time. To show them how smart you are when what the people listening really need is some spiritual and moral leadership.
Don't they need truth?
Yes, they need the truth.
Well, then why do you resent me for speaking truth?
You're not giving them the truth. You're not giving them the truth. You're giving them...
Then refute anything I just had to say.
I've never put you down. In 3 years of religious broadcasting, I have never put you down for what you've said or believed. Just the opposite.
Sir, you put me down for my lack of belief.
I did never... You tell me what I said to put you down on this show or any other show we've ever done.
Don't you feel sorry for me because I don't believe
I said that you have a decision to make, Bob Lassiter.
You feel sorry for me, don't you?
Not at all.
Funny, I believe you said so in the past.
No, you told me how successful you are. I'm telling you that you have a decision to make. God is real. You can choose to have a relationship with the God who is real, or you can choose not to. If you choose not to, you certainly have the right to do that.
And I have never said anything
else. you accuse me of something which is bordering on libelous, I expect you to come up with something I have said. Anytime on this show...
attitude, Rabbi.
Oh, my attitude is a put-down to you?
It's a put-down to everyone who believes as I do.
Oh, really?
And frankly, your attitude is also a put-down to all of the people who take that book literally.
Oh, really? That's very interesting.
No, it's not very interesting. It is a fact. Well, they're just stories.
That is my opinion. I have never put down people for finding God through this book. I've never put you down for not inviting God into your life. That's your decision. That is up to you and everyone listening. All I can tell you is what I've decided. I've decided to have a relationship with God. I can tell you that I've gained peace. I've gained a sense of wholeness and fullness and being found and being whole that I never had in my life. Even when I had money,
sir,
even when I had no problems,
have you not said to me in private conversations, gee, I wish you could find peace. I hope you'll find peace. How do you know I don't have any peace, sir?
I think I don't remember ever saying that to you. That's number one. And number two, if you don't have peace, I think some of that's self-evident on what you're doing in today's broadcast and what you've done on previous broadcasts when you've talked about religion and God.
Is inner peace just accepting anything?
No. Inner peace comes from a closeness with God.
But you're going to assume because I don't accept everything that I have no inner peace.
I don't know how much inner peace you have. I can only tell by the way that you behave and the outbursts that you always seem to have when you talk about religion. I think you are being tested. I think you're being tried.
Being tested?
Yeah, I think that a lot of what's happening to you is that you are getting closer and closer to knowing that you have a decision to make. And
see, there's the arrogance that I speak of.
No, it's not arrogance.
That's the exact arrogance I speak
not
of,
arrogance,
sir.
Because I've been there, Bob.
Oh,
I've been there.
Been there.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been where you are at. I was one of the greatest critics of the Bible. I was one of the greatest critics of faith, religion, God, when I was a rabbi.
Well, tell me some of the things that you criticized about the Bible in the past, some of the real doubts that you had.
Well, I doubted. I looked at the book in such a scholarly way. I had that background of higher criticism that I never thought of it being divine in any way. I never thought that there might be sections of it that have survived because there's a message in it that's so important to humanity. And there is a message in that book that is important to humanity.
And that message predates the book, sir.
No. The message that you shall be holy for the Lord your God is holy. It does not predate that book.
What does that mean? You shall be holy because the Lord your God is... What does that mean?
It means that you conduct your everyday life, your everyday activity in such a way as to give credit to God and to give credit to humanity.
Well, again, what does that mean?
In each person's life.
Put it in English that we can all understand.
Well, it depends what you do. If you sell transmissions, it means you don't rip off little old ladies for transmission jobs. If you work at Pickwick, it means you put a full day in and you don't loaf.
If you work at Pickwick, you put in a full day and you don't loaf, you do that just because that makes God happy?
You do that because it's all part of living a life.
No, you do it because it's the right thing to do.
That's right.
And it has nothing whatsoever to do with God.
No, it has to do with trying
to... And billions of people lived on this earth before and after that book showed up who lived their lives that very way without ever once having heard of your God.
Not according to recorded history. They didn't live their lives that way. Not according to recorded history. The civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia, which predate the Jewish civilizations, were not kind, compassionate civilizations. They were not civilizations where the average person had a strong moral fortress.
The Jewish civilization was a kind, compassionate civilization?
In comparison to the others at the time,
in comparison to the others. Of course, that's right. All of their atrocities were committed because God told them to.
And evolved and is evolving to be more kind and compassionate, considerate, and forgiving as time goes on.
Compared with others, I guess, when God told them to go bring home the virgins, and if they liked them, to keep them, and if they didn't, to throw them out into the desert. That's compassionate, sir. That's kind.
You know for a fact that my faith is not based totally on this book. The one thing.
What is it based on?
The one thing. I've told you 100 times what you haven't heard. and I think everyone else listening to this show has heard, my faith is based on my own personal relationship with God, which not just Bresky can have, because Bresky ain't that great. He's nothing. The key point is that every person listening now can have that relationship with God, as you, Bob Lassiter, could have that daily personal relationship with God.
Again, there's your arrogance showing through.
You told me privately you have never had that ongoing personal relationship with God on a daily basis.
I beg your pardon, sir. I was inundated with religion in my youth.
No, I'm not talking about religion.
I'm not talking about religion.
I'm talking about your own personal relationship.
Again, your
with
arrogance
God.
comes through. What you're saying
you
about
told
what
me
you're
in person
saying is being at peace with yourself, right?
I'm saying that when you find God, you will be at peace with yourself. Not just you,
again,
but
your
anyone.
arrogance shows through.
Well,
you're assuming I am not at peace with myself. Something, or have never been, something that you have no knowledge of whatsoever.
Oh, your audience does. It's self-evident.
Right. Coming up on the 1 o'clock hour, we'll go to the phones in the second hour. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Whatever you do, don't venture very far.
News Radio 970, WFLA, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater. Lock it in. Then tear off the knob. Good afternoon. 91 degrees in St. Petersburg and Clearwater, 89 in Tampa, and mostly sunny at 1 o'clock. I'm Charlie Davis, News Radio 970 WFLA.
7 minutes after the hour of 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, July the 19th, 1988. In studio with me, Rabbi Jan Bresky.
Bob, do people know that we're friends?
Are we friends?
I think so.
I think so, too.
I think that you and I go back a long way. You were very responsible for helping me get my job at WPLP, and you have been a mentor in terms of media work, and I think people should know that our disagreement is purely on the subject of religion, which is very, very close to me, as you know. And
very close to me, too.
And it's not something that that is personal between us. That's it.
What happened at PLP? Why aren't you there anymore?
Oh, I have a new policy, which I said in the paper, the St. Pete Times, I would not criticize. But I've been thinking and praying.
Well, you took shots at Dick Norman. Why not take shots at them?
Well, anyone who goes on says everything's all right. And he had a guy on this morning who says, I can't make a living because I'm only making $4 an hour. And Norman said he was lazy. The guy said,
I didn't ask for a critique of Dick Norman's show. I asked you what happened at PLP. Why aren't you on that station?
I think the people who've taken over that station, which is now WTKN, are the cruelest, most backward people I have ever met. I think that they've hurt a lot of people that you and I know who we care about very much. And the fact of the matter is that they dropped my show when I was at the National Institute for Health in the hospital, finding out whether or not I had a terminal disease. They dropped my show that night that I chose while I was getting a blood transfusion to do via the telephone. That was the night they decided to drop my show. That is the type of people they are. They have fired or let go every person at that station, save John Eastman. And I think their ratings reflect not only the kind of bad radio that they're doing, but I think that their ratings reflect the kind of bad people that they are. And I think the Tampa Bay community should know that WTKN has hurt people very badly. Me, I'm just a part-timer, but people that we know and we love very much were hurt. They were let go in the most unprofessional way by these very, very unethical people.
Not a very godlike attitude on your part, is it? Not very charitable.
I prayed for 2 days knowing that this question would come up, whether or not I should say anything. And I really have a policy, which I'd love to keep, about not criticizing. But I think that nowhere on the air have I heard it being said, and I can say because I'm a part-timer, it doesn't matter to me. Nowhere in the air have I heard it said the deep pain and the deep hurt that these people at WTKN have caused a great number of people in our profession. I think it's wrong, and I think that someone has to say something about it, and now I have.
One line open in each county, 461-9352 in Pinellas, 990-9352 in Hillsborough. Joe in Odessa. Joe, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hi, Bob. Hi,
Joe.
Rabbi.
Hi.
Okay, I've got several short, quick questions for you. I don't know Bob personally, but he seems to be a loving person, a lover of humanity.
He is.
Say.
He is.
Basically good to people. He seems to be a person that would, give someone the shirt off his back if they needed it.
He has.
What do you think his destiny is?
What do you mean by his destiny?
I mean, you believe in heaven and hell,
do I think he's going to go to heaven or hell?
Mm-hmm.
I think just by the weight, I think by the weight of his good deeds, that if there is a heaven, Bob Lassiter would go to heaven.
Okay, so then what is the problem then?
I think that Bob Lassiter and other people are missing out on a dimension of life in which they can be better people, better in touch with themselves and with the world by having a relationship with God. That's my opinion. Again. If it's arrogance, I apologize. You know I don't mean to be arrogant to you. It's just what I believe.
I understand what he's saying because you're making it sound. Now, let me preface this by saying, I'm a believer, okay? But you're making it sound that in the Lord's eyes, you're better off than Bob is. When you both are probably moral, very moral people. He's a married man. I don't think I don't know, but I'm assuming that he doesn't cheat.
Bob Lassiter off the air is one of the most straight, dull, moral people you ever want to meet.
I met the man, but the point I'm trying to make is you make it sound as if in the Lord's eyes you're a far better person.
Then I apologize for my arrogance because I cannot speak for God.
Okay, now on the other. Okay, so in other words, what you're saying, you don't have to be a religious man and still be favorable in the Lord's eyes.
What do you call a religious man? If going to church or synagogue every week makes you religious, I don't think that has anything to do with our relationship with God.
A believer.
I don't think belief is the key issue. I think relationship.
Just pick and choose now.
Do you not conduct services every week, Rabbi?
What? No, I don't. No, I don't.
Have you not in the past?
Yes, I have.
Will you in the future?
Yes, maybe someday I might.
Well, why are you going to hold these irrelevant services?
I didn't say the services were irrelevant. I say if a person comes to services and pretends that they have this wonderful relationship with God and then goes out and hurts people, then that type of person is not a religious person.
I'm saying that this is picking. You're making it sound like pick and choose because you're supposed to tithe. You're supposed to...
I never asked you to tithe.
Well, you see, the book...
God did.
God did, and Bob don't. So there's pick and choose there.
Well, I'm not sure the Bible is very clear about the whole issue of tithing. In Exodus it says... in Exodus it says that every person should bring a free will offering as his heart prompts him to do.
Yeah, but then it also talks about, the poor children of Levi. I mean, the other 11 tribes got the promised land divided up amongst them, but Levi's family didn't, so you got to give 10% of what you got to Levites.
No, you have to give 10% to the Levites because they worked in the temple and they had no other source of income.
Exactly, because they were left out when the promised land was divided up.
I think that might be an explanation that people gave for the very fact the Levites needed to support
Maybe it was
themselves.
An explanation that the Levites came up with, you know what I mean?
It was.
Yeah,
the book of Leviticus was written...
to do with God.
The book of Leviticus was written by the Levites.
And had nothing at all to do with God, right?
I see, now, that is a put-down. I don't want to make that statement, Bob. That's up to you. You want to make that statement, fine. But I think this man does have a point. If I have portrayed myself as being better than you, Bob Lassiter, or better than anybody else, then you're right. That is arrogance, and I'm sorry.
Well,
that's the wrong thing.
You do, sir, every time that you say, religious, because you're substituting the word religious for the word good.
No, I think...
And one has nothing whatsoever to do with the other.
What you said is you make it sound that as if that Bob would be so much better off if he went in your direction.
No, I think Bob would be better off if he went in the direction of God. He could leave me out.
That's arrogance right there.
Well, if that's arrogance, I'm afraid I have to stand by that. I think every human being would be better if they had a relationship with God. That's what I have to say.
That's where problems start happening because... what about people that have other religions that firmly believe just like you do?
Yeah. If they find God that way, that's fine.
Okay. Now, like I said, I had just a couple questions.
Okay.
But next thing is this: when we were talking about how does God let this suffering go on, you came out and said that it's because of the things that we do that we're being punished in such a way.
I never said that. I didn't say suffering was a result of being punished. I don't believe that. I don't believe that we're...
I don't remember your exact words.
Okay, but I want to get that clear. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to get that clear. I don't think suffering is a matter of being punished.
Okay, I think you said something like we choose to do things in such a way that we cause our own hardship.
There are two types of suffering. There is suffering that we bring upon ourselves, okay? And then there is suffering that occurs to us, and I will say I don't know the reason why.
Okay. Okay, the point I wanted to bring up was somewhere overseas, I'm not sure where it was, Bob can probably help me out on this, there was a children's hospital where the third story or the fourth story collapsed on all the children that were under doctor's care, that were in the hospital, that were dying or healing or whatever, on innocent children. Now, we all know that when you're in a hospital or when you're in prison, you're the closest that you can ever get to God. I mean, you're praying, everybody's praying for you. The doctors in the hospital were, giving and helping the children. Are you familiar with the situation, the incident I'm speaking of?
There are many incidents like that, earthquakes that orphanages fall apart, etc.
Are you familiar with the incident I'm speaking of where one of the stories collapsed? They were building it, and the second floor was being used at that time where the children...
there are many stories like that.
Yeah,
what is the point?
The point is why innocent children?
I don't know.
Don't you care?
Yes, very much.
Well, don't I
care? Just a second.
Well, no. I meant, don't you care about why you don't know?
I'm going to answer that
I meant,
question.
why don't you care about why you don't know?
Yes, I care very much. I want to tell you
Well, then why do you spend so much time running around talking about all the marvelous things
Can I tell you an
he did for you personally when this type of thing goes on?
I'd like to tell you an incident.
I want to give one more situation, then I'll get off, okay?
I'd like to just tell an incident that happened to me, because it's very important right here. I was at the National Institute for Health to examine my blood. And I was on the level where they have children who have blood diseases. And there was a girl up there who was neutropenic, meaning she had no white blood cells. Her skin was completely yellow, jet yellow. She was in the hospital. She was 10 years old, and she was in the hospital for a year with an oxygen mask on for a full year. Okay? And I went in to visit that girl and her mother almost every day. I was in the hospital. And when I left, I went up to the chapel. And when I prayed to God those days, I said to God, God, what you're doing with this young girl is unbecoming of you. So do I question? Do I have feelings? Do I think some things are unjust? Yes. And do I express those to God? Yes, I do.
Because at the same time that this thing was happening, well, I don't know if it was at the exact same time, that these innocent children were being crushed to death, that were sick and dying and under doctor's care, and people were helping them. At the same time, some Iranians, or whoever the heck they are, were throwing bodies out on the tarmac. Where does he channel his priorities?
Look, you're asking me questions you should be asking God. I know there's a God because I have a personal relationship with God.
Well,
why God?
No, wait a second,
why
Rabbi.
God?
Wait a second, Rabbi.
May I finish my statement?
Yeah,
why
right after I correct something that you just said. You're putting this man down for asking questions that you should be asking of God, not me. Rabbi, you're the guy that comes in here and says, "Hey, I know all about God. I'm here to tell you."
I never said that.
So, that God does this and God's marvelous and God's. But just don't ask me the tough questions. Is what you're saying.
I never said I know all about God. I know only that I have a personal relationship with God, and that it's helped my life, and that's made me be, in my particular case, a better person. That's all I know. These questions of why things happen in the world, why evil happens, I can't answer those questions. I am not in that position. Those are questions that I've addressed to God, and God hasn't blessed me with all the answers. I'm just a person. Give me a little credit for at least being a human being with frailties and faults, just like everybody who's listening. I am a person also who has asked to be a servant of God, and asked, therefore, to invite other people to have a relationship with God. That's all I do. Over and above that, I don't do anything else.
All right, I have one more thing, if I may.
Yeah, please, Joe. We got to wrap it up.
Okay, there's a story in the Bible. For the life of me, I can't remember where it is. This guy and the story is prefaced that the man is favorable in the Lord's eyes, as he says in many stories. He starts with that. He was favorable in the Lord's eyes. This guy went to go get one of his servants, who was at the servant's father's house. It was a her. So he goes to get her, and when they get ready to leave, when he gets ready to leave to go back home with his servant, the father says, stay the night. It's getting too late. And he does this 3 or 4 days in a row, and they sit and get drunk all night long. On the last night that he was there, he gets ready to leave. The father says, no, it's getting late. Stay another night. And he does. Meanwhile, some guys come there, and they go to rape one of the men. And the guy says, we'll send out my daughter. So they didn't send out the daughter. They sent out the guy's servant. And then they went back inside and drank. And when the guy left to go in the morning, his servant was laying in the front of the house, bleeding and dying. He took her home. He went home, took her home, and cut her up in pieces, into 12 pieces. Do you recall a story like that?
Well, I think you have it very inaccurate. You're talking about the story of Lot and the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, when he was willing to send out his daughter in a sacrificial act rather than to send out his guest to be killed and raped by a group of men.
That's not exactly the way I remember the story. Yeah, it's kind of close again, Rabbi, just like Joe was kind of close. It seems to me that the way the story is told, God intervened and said, whoa, better to send out your daughter than to send out a man.
And, of course, God knew that neither one would be destroyed.
See, these are all things that I don't understand.
Nor do I.
Floor falling down.
Oh, I understand. No, Joe, it's perfectly easy to understand. It was one of those delightful stories that, again, was putting down women.
Joe, do you believe in God?
Yes, I do.
Keep going, Joe.
I don't understand.
Neither do I, Joe, but keep going.
Okay, I need to go.
All right, bye-bye.
You're on the air, WFLA.
Yeah, I want to speak to Make It Up As You Go Along, Bresky.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you state earlier that you don't put down all the religious leaders. I've listened to your program, and you've trashed Jerry Falwell.
Wait. And on top of that, I just dumped it. Tough luck, Tom. Let's go to Gabriel in Tampa. Gabriel, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing? Okay, I heard, Mr. Rabbi, there, that's it. Sir, do you believe in the book of Job? It's from God.
What do you mean by do I believe in it?
Do you believe that it's totally from God?
I believe that it's a very, very good explanation of suffering, yes.
Okay. Earlier you had said that nowhere in the Old Testament it said that there was mentioned devil or Satan.
That's correct. It's mentioned there once.
It's mentioned.
But actually the word is not Satan. If you read the Hebrew, the word is the accuser, not Satan. The word Satan is not mentioned in the entire Bible.
Well, there are three.
Oh, again, we're playing semantics.
No, we're not playing semantics. We're playing the fact that some people can read the book in the original and some people don't.
Well, are we not talking about a symbol for evil?
Yes.
So we're talking semantics. Go ahead, caller.
I'm not sure that's true, because what is described as Satan in Christianity does not exist in the Jewish Bible.
Well, in 1 Chronicles 21,
Same thing. The accuser.
And in Zechariah,
same thing.
chapter 3.
Same thing. Hamashchit.
A supernatural evil being, right?
I'm not sure that Satan in the book of Job is supernatural. I think
when you take
he's
the form of a snake, that would kind of make you supernatural.
No,
wouldn't it?
I don't think he takes the form of a snake in the book of Job, but I think that
he does in the book of Genesis.
He plays a foil to bring out the issue of suffering.
Anyhow. What was my other thing?
Okay.
Hold on, my gosh, I forgot. You don't believe that it says that he's supernatural in the way he was in Job. It says he was talking to God directly before the.
I don't believe that the book is literally true. I don't believe there was a person or a thing or a being called Satan who talked to God.
Okay.
Okay. But I do believe the book of Job has a wonderful expose on what suffering is all about.
All right.
Again, the good old pick and choose Bible there, huh?
Do you believe you said, I think you said, that you also believe in other doctrines such as Hindu and...
I have found, in my opinion, sparks of God in all of the holy books, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Jain, Taoist.
Isn't sparks of God the same thing as saying that...
God spoke to all people of all different faiths.
Then I guess he didn't have any chosen children.
I don't believe that Jews have any special status in terms of being better than anyone else.
As a matter of fact, even in the writings of the Greeks, there are many of the same things that you'd find in the Bible about morality, right?
Well, of course, because the Greeks...
don't pretend at all.
Of course, the Greeks come after the Bible. Is that not true, Bob?
Not necessarily, no.
The Greeks don't come after the Bible?
Well, when was the Bible actually written?
Oh, that's very interesting. There are parts of the Bible that are over 4,000 years old, Bob.
No, there are parts of the Bible that are purported to be, sir.
No, the Bible was put together under the tutelage of King David in about 2600 B.C.
Well, that's what it says.
And the Greeks, as you know, Bob...
That's what it says, sir.
The Greeks, as you know... No, that's...
Of course, there are no texts that go back that far, are there?
The Greeks, as you know, come way after that period of time.
No, I know that the Bible says it was being put together back then, but I don't know when it was put together.
And if there's wisdom in the Greeks, what's wrong with that?
Because the Hebrews didn't even have a written language or the ability to disseminate it 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, especially like in the time of Moses.
That's not true. They had an ancient form of Hebrew in which we found segments thereof recently in something called the Ebla tablets. But, okay.
Well,
I don't think anyone's really interested in this.
But there's a lot of things you can base the morality on. Greek religions, pagan religions, a lot of them. Where do you base the spiritual aspect?
I think that there's been many attempts to have what's called naturalistic ethics. That is, an ethics without a God, without a supreme being. From my study of ethics, none of the naturalistic systems of ethics have ever worked. The only system of ethics that I feel has ever worked is an ethics that is based on a being or a force or a power or a concept greater than man.
In other words, man's not cool enough on his own to know right and wrong, or man is not good enough on his own to know right from wrong. Man could only be civilized if there were some unseen, unknown creature that would probably punish him if he wasn't good.
The most advanced civilization that I know about was Germany in the 1930s. The top music, the top scientists, the top culture, and we see what civilized man without the ability to communicate with God or relate to God can do.
I beg your pardon. I, of course, would join in with you in calling the German civilization of the 1930s barbaric and unhuman.
No, I didn't say that. I said it was highly advanced. They had Goethe and Schiller writing. They had the top scientists of the time.
And they also killed, tens of millions of people that they didn't like.
The point, because
very similar.
So
sir,
therefore,
very
civilization does not produce ethical people.
Very similar, sir, to those ethical people 4,000 years ago, who also, according to the book, slaughtered countless numbers of people simply because they didn't like them, because they weren't worshiping the right God, because they weren't the right race.
I don't justify their behavior at all. I don't justify their behavior
this is the civilization where your ethics and morals come from.
No, I think where my ethics and morals come from are the doctrines of love, toleration for others, and a philosophy of non-harm. Love, tolerance, and non-harm, which you can find exposed and discussed in every single world religion. So therefore, God did not keep those three principles secret from humanity in any way.
Gabriel, I thank you. Let us go on to Wendy in Largo. Wendy, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hello.
Hi, Wendy.
Okay, a few moments ago you had made the comment that when Rabbi Bresky had said that God was very close to him, or religion was a subject close to him, you said it was personal to you or something. Did you say that?
I don't recall ever saying
I think
anything
you said it was
that.
close to you.
I thought you...
Oh, yeah, the study of religion is very close to me.
All right, well, let me ask you
I find
something.
it fascinating.
Okay, Bob, what is it? How do you explain sufferings and tragedies when something tragic occurs? What do you think of?
What do I think of?
Yeah, and how...
Hey, stuff happens, lady, you know?
Things happen. Okay.
That's right.
And that's it. There's nothing... I mean, it's not punishment then, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, I don't believe in punishment.
I don't think it's punishment either.
Okay, but let me ask you something else. Do you believe in the freedom to choose?
Do I believe in the freedom to choose? Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, so do I. So we agree on that. Now, are you not violating Rabbi Bresky's right to his belief while you're trying to defend
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. I've done nothing. I've done absolutely nothing to stop Rabbi Bresky from his belief.
Okay.
If Rabbi Bresky is free, if Rabbi Bresky, ma'am, is free to walk around spouting his belief, then I am free, ma'am, to walk around and challenge it.
Oh, listen, I commend you for that. But what I am stating is you've called him arrogant. You have called him...
No, I've called his attitude arrogant.
Okay. Well, he's just voicing
Yours is just calm, right?
opinion. And, right, I feel you've got a persecution complex, and you're doing the same thing that you're accusing him and other religious leaders of doing to you.
Yes, ma'am, I believe I pointed that out. That's probably where you got that original thought. We all do the exact same thing, and I am just sick and tired of being ridiculed because I don't swallow something.
Well, listen, I think all religions pick and choose, period, or else there wouldn't be so many denominations and different religions, period.
I'm very well aware of that.
Or people are exposed to God and see God differently, the way that one sees a rainbow one way from one side of a beach and sees it the other way from another side of the beach.
So I get a little bit disturbed when somebody tells me that a book is divinely inspired. The book isn't divinely inspired, it's divinely read.
Well, I have got my own personal feelings, and I know that I'm personally tired of being told by people that I'm going to hell by the way I believe. So I don't like it either. But I feel everyone is free to choose, pick and choose if they so may feel, to believe on their own, as long as they don't infringe that right on me.
One of the things Mr. Lassiter has failed to point out, and always fails to point out when I'm on the show, is that I'm probably the only one in religious broadcasting today that doesn't send people to hell because they don't agree with me or agree with my religion. That the kind of broadcasting, religious broadcasting I do, is to get people back to God, each in their own way.
That's right. And if God to one person is just nature, fine. If God, God himself could mean, one thing to one person and something totally different to another.
Well, I think there's also something else, though, that you failed to point out, Rabbi, and that is that it was you who contacted the station initially to be on my show, as I recall.
No, I think we were talking on the phone socially one night, and I said,
I had never heard of you, sir, until we did the show.
Oh, no, there was the first show we've ever done? Right. There was a third party who called me and said, do you want to be on Bob Lassiter's show? And at that time, you weren't so famous, so I said, who? Who's he?
If you are going to argue over
You should see his face when I said that. Go ahead.
What in the hell does that mean?
Nothing.
You see my face.
He's such a... Never mind. His ego's so big when I said, who's that? He just went crazy. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, gosh, I think...
Why are you making things up as you're going along, Rabbi? Do you feel it necessary to somehow... get your message out or to be loved by the audience to make up things that aren't happening?
I'm finding this whole conversation extremely interesting, but it isn't very becoming to either of you. Now, I am not a critic, per se, but I think if you would both retain a calm air about the both of you, I think everyone would get a little bit further, and I think you'd realize that everyone has their own opinions.
Yeah, I know everybody has their own opinions, ma'am. I also know how to conduct my show, and I also know how to get ratings. Thank you very much for telling me how to do so. Rose in St. Petersburg. Rose, you're on the air, WFLA.
Afternoon, Bob.
Hello, Rose.
Great show.
Thanks.
Rabbi Bresky's a rabbi, right?
No, I believe he's a retired Air Force major. He just has taken the term rabbi to solicit donations on street corners.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Yes, I was reared a Christian, so I'm not, into rabbis too much.
Okay.
But I get the feeling we're pretty close.
Probably.
Very, very close. Anyway, as time goes on, you hear more things like the tablets from the Ten Commandments were found.
No, and then you hear things like they found the Ark up in Turkey and things like that. I think that if you take the Bible literally and you want to go searching for these things, that's okay. But in my particular point of view, I believe that many of these things are stories, legends, epics, but they contain the wisdom of God, and therefore they should be respected as such.
What does that mean, they contain the wisdom of God?
All right.
Isn't that a nice way of saying, I think you're crazy for believing what you believe, but I'll tag on something nice at the end of this so that you won't hate me.
I don't care whether,
what does it mean? But they're stories, but they contain the wisdom of God.
Leviticus 19. Speak unto the whole Israelite community. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall revere your mother and fathers.
I don't care what Leviticus said. I can't get him on the show. Yeah, I asked you what you meant.
By what?
But they, they're just stories, but they contain the wisdom of God. What does that mean?
I just read for you a section which I think contains the wisdom of God.
You read for me what you believe Leviticus wrote.
How about purpose or essence?
What do you mean by purpose or essence?
What is purpose of how to guidelines, how we should act, how we should live?
I believe, in my opinion, the purpose of our life is to find out what God wants us to do and to do it well. I believe that each person has a special mission or special purpose that God has given them.
Rabbi, could you...
I believe that you're a well-trained man, Rabbi, who, like most people in your profession, send people away scratching their head with things that say utterly nothing but sound great.
What is it that you don't understand?
But it contains the wisdom of God.
What is it that you don't understand?
I've asked you 2 or 3 times already during the course of this hour when you said, well, they're just stories, but they contain the wisdom of God.
Cannot a story contain wisdom in it, Bob?
What is the wisdom of God, sir?
What is the wisdom of God? His thoughts and his essence. Like the ladies, I think essence.
You mean he thought about the ark? He thought about the flood?
I think he thought about getting across the ideas of love, the ideas of prayer, the ideas of tolerance.
Well, as I recall, the whole story of the flood had nothing whatsoever to do with love.
Why was there a flood? The story of the flood...
To destroy the world.
Because there was corruption. Hamas, as it says in the Hebrew.
Right, there was corruption amongst the giraffes. There was corruption amongst babies that were born yesterday. So let's drown them all.
If you can't look at this world and say the same corruption exists...
No, sir, if you can look at that story and call it a story of love, you're a very perverted man.
And if we don't start to change the way that we're living, the same type of thing will happen to us.
Dance in circles. You just got finished calling the story of the flood a story of love, and now it's if we can't do this and if we can't do that, I guess it'll happen again.
Well, I guess a loving God gives us a second chance. Yes.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Maybe that ark story was because the people, kind of a punishment for the sinners?
Yeah, like the giraffes and the hippopotamuses that didn't get on the ark, right, lady?
I think that there is a natural punishment for people who sin. And I think that it is a good story to teach us that corruption in society will eventually come back to haunt us and will eventually come back to destroy us.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Seems I heard the tablets were found and the method in which everything was written was like a laser or fire, not your old-time method, of pounding it in.
I don't know of such a thing.
Okay, Rabbi, could you wrap up the whole Bible into one word?
Rose.
Rabbi, could you wrap up the whole Bible into one word?
Rose, do you believe for one instant, Rose, that if these miraculous tablets were found and appeared to be written by a laser, and we all know that means the finger of God, right, Rose? Do you believe for one instant that if these things existed, it would not be the top story? but, you know, just show up in kind of a weird obscure little publication that maybe you subscribe to.
You feel good blowing this lady away? You really feel good about this, don't you?
Yes, I do. I really feel good about asking somebody to think and use their damned head for a change.
People do not care. It would not be a top story.
People do not care. Rose, give me a break.
Hey, Rabbi.
My arrogance must be contagious, then.
Rabbi,
yes.
Could you wrap up the whole Bible in one word?
The Spirit of God. It's not one word, but that's the best I can do.
I like to think of the word love, like for loving each other, because with that, you might, everything else will be covered.
And you find this very objectionable that a lady who calls in your show...
I've read the Bible. She hasn't. I know how much love is in that Bible.
Well, I've had a heck of a lot of catechism and math.
Right, I'll bet you have, Rose.
And when Jesus said to forgive, and when Jesus taught the Beatitudes, you don't find that to be any message of love in that. You find no message of love in the Sermon on the Mount. You find no message of forgiveness and compassion in any of the books of the New Testament.
I didn't say that, did I?
Well, why are you putting down both?
I give, as a matter of fact, once a year, I give the Sermon on the Mount on my show. It's become a tradition with me.
It was beautiful. Bob should have been a priest or whatever he called it.
But I find pulling something there again, your arrogance. One more time. Oh, he would be so much better if only he believed the way I do.
No, I didn't say that, Bob.
But I find, nonetheless, taking something out of context, and the context of that book is not pleasant. It is not love. It is fear. It is atrocities. It is horrors. It is putting people down. It is putting a gender down. It is putting people who don't believe the same down. That is not love, sir.
Rabbi.
Yes.
But didn't Jesus die on the cross because he loved us?
Christians certainly believe that, and that is the way the Christians find their path to God.
Oh, that was the biggest act of love, giving up your life.
And certainly,
Rose, is not Jesus supernatural?
I guess.
Well, I guess he didn't give up his life, did he, Rose?
Well, he was born of people, though.
Well, but Rose...
And he did suffer, and it did hurt, and he did bleed.
Well, Rose, you don't know that he suffered and hurt. That's just what you read in the book. How could somebody supernatural suffer and hurt, Rose?
Because he was born of people, of humans. Well, Rabbi, you're doing a great job. Rabbi, do you have a synagogue or something?
I do not have a synagogue right now. I spend my time doing religious broadcasting.
Okay, well, you're doing great, and I'm glad
Besides, if he did have if he did have a synagogue, your church wouldn't want you to go there.
I don't care. I have an open mind. And
you don't care?
Rabbi.
Oh.
Yes.
You're doing a great job, and I'm glad you don't let Bob walk all over you, and I think he interrupts too much, and he's rude.
God bless you, Rose.
God bless you.
I'll see you soon.
Rose and her magic tablets. 46 the time. Rabbi Jan Bresky, my guest in studio. Jim in Clearwater. Jim, you're on the air, WFLA.
Yes, Rabbi, I'm very concerned with the anti-Semitism in the Christian religion, especially with the born-again enthusiasts.
Yes.
I've heard Falwell quoted and later denied or explained his way out of the fact that Jews don't pray to God. It almost seems as though there's always been this stigma of my religion's better than your religion.
Yes.
But the fact that the Jews don't accept the Blessed Trilogy, they're not praying to God, and there are several quotes in the New Testament that pretty much leave it an open and shut case that anyone who does not accept Christ as their Savior is going to live in the eternal pool of fire, whatever you think hell is.
Okay, good. The people you're talking about subscribe to a theory called replacement theology, which says that Judaism has been replaced by a better religion called Christianity.
Right.
Unfortunately, in Iran, there are people who also subscribe to that theology who feel that Christianity has been replaced by Islam.
Mm-hmm.
I think that replacement theology in terms of organized religion in any religion is one of the most dangerous points of view because it gives people the idea that they are superior or closer to God simply by being in a religion than other people.
All religions, all Christians and Muslims, therefore, have a dangerous point of view?
No, I think there are large segments of Christianity and large segments of Islam which do not believe in replacement theology. And I'll give you an example. There's a man in Canada called Tom Harper, and he believes that the main message of Jesus is forgiveness, compassion, and love. and he argues against those segments which seem to be, and again he says seem to be, an open and closed case for Jesus being the type of person who preached that Christianity was the only way. In fact, if that was Jesus' main idea, he would have said it again and again and again.
But the children
of Israel, there would not be a few isolated passages in the New Testament which said that.
But the children of Israel, they don't have a dangerous philosophy.
I think some Orthodox Jews on the West Bank in Israel also have the same dangerous philosophy that they are better simply by being Jews and therefore should have custody of the land of Israel, that land of Israel being from the Mesopotamian River to the Nile River.
Well, and are you a Jew?
Well, I'm a Jew, but I'm not a Jew in that sense.
Are you a Jew of the land of Israel? Not the current political land of Israel, but the chosen people.
No, I think my ancestry probably goes back to Russia, and I don't think any of my ancestors were ever in the land of Israel.
Rabbi, merely by the fact that Christ said it once, that I am the Son of the Lord thy God, thine will receive the kingdom.
Well, I think that's I'm not sure we know exactly what Jesus ever said. Because nothing was written down.
We know exactly what Leviticus said.
Nothing was written down to about 100 years after his death.
And nothing was written down till hundreds of years after the Old Testament. However, even though there is some debate as to how much of the Old Testament should be taken seriously, there's a huge religious movement that believe every word in the New Testament.
20% of America, about 1 out of every 5 Americans believes that every word in the New Testament is directly from God.
I beg your pardon, at the recent Baptist Council, the Baptist Congress said that the liberal faction of the Baptists will no longer be tolerated, and the conservatives were voted into the council saying that the Bible is the unexpurgated Word of God, and every singular word in the Bible was to be taken as fact.
Right, and about 20% of America believes that.
A portion of Christians. They add into that the born-agains and several other religious enthusiast groups, and the denominations are staggering. A lot of people earnestly believe that anyone who does not accept Jesus as their Savior.
Well, what is the point of all this? We all know this.
I beg your pardon?
Well, what is the point of all this? We're all aware of it.
I'm worried about the growing anti-Semitism in the Christian.
I'm not sure it's growing. I think that in many ways, some of these people like Oral Roberts and Jimmy Swaggart and some of these other people who preach this replacement theology have peaked in their market. And the reason that they're going against each other and turning on each other is that they have peaked in their market and can find no new market, so therefore they're trying to eliminate each other.
Well, aren't you just as concerned, caller, for example, with the anti-Christianity and the anti-Semitism in Islam? Would you be just as concerned with that?
Certainly.
Would you be just as concerned with the anti-Christianity and the anti-Islam in Israel?
Certainly. So I think that religion gives us an
any group
to be biased.
Any group of people that believe in replacement theology, that their religion has replaced another or is the only way to God, is a dangerous group.
Thank you very much, caller. 1:51 the time. Charlie Davis standing by in the WFLA news booth. 1:54 the time. Van in Tampa. Van, you're on the air, WFLA, with Rabbi John Bresky.
If I could talk to Bresky. Rabbi?
Yes, sir.
Rabbi, first let me ask Bob this question. Bob, in saying that the rabbi is arrogant because he's trying to tell you there's a God that he has no proof of.
No, that's not why I said he was arrogant, sir. I said he was arrogant because he was trying to tell me that I would be better off if I believed the way he did.
Well, no, I think you would be better off if you had a relationship with God. I don't really care. No, I don't really care whether you believe the way I do. I have no desire for you to believe the way I do. I have a great desire for you to have a relationship with God, and you laugh at me and you get mad at me every time. But I'm going to tell you why again, and you can laugh at me and get mad at me again, because I think you, Bob Lassiter, could have a great influence as a religious teacher, not as a religious critic.
Oh, marvelous. But it still boils down to my life would be so much better if I believed what you believed.
Not what I believe, but have your own relationship with God and follow that wherever it takes you. I don't think you have to believe the way I believe.
My life would be so much better if I didn't challenge your beliefs.
No, you can challenge me all you want. I think your life would be better if you had a relationship with God.
I'm trying to say something here, folks.
I'm sorry.
Could I?
I'm sorry.
I was trying to tell Bob that if he thinks that the rabbi is arrogant in trying to share something that he holds in his heart, it's beautiful, and likes to share it with you, I call that charity. Now...
Oh, sir, I quite disagree. I don't think... You know, unless you're going to admit what you're doing, I don't think it is charitable, sir, to call other people's beliefs...
This is how he sees it
to call
in
other
his heart.
people's beliefs, you know, stories and fables, unless you're going to admit what you're doing. In that case, you know, like I do, in that case, you're at least honest and upfront, and everybody knows where you're coming from.
Now, I think you are arrogant in trying to tell the rabbi that there is no God when you can't prove that either.
Van, I didn't say there wasn't any God. I just said I find the concept of the rabbi's God to be absurd.
Whoa, you don't even know my concept. Whoa!
Bob, do you believe in a God?
Hold on. You don't even know my concept of God.
Oh, sure I do, Rabbi.
I don't have a concept of God,
sure,
Bob.
Rabbi,
I have a relationship with God.
Your God is the God that finds wisdom in the story of the ark.
You talk about arrogance.
No, that's not arrogance. You've already told me, sir.
Are you there in the park with me when I pray to God?
And
you know what my relationship with God is? That is the most arrogant thing
you have already told me that your God is the God of the Bible.
No, you know what? That proves that you don't listen.
No, I don't think you listen to what you say.
3 times on this show that my belief is not based on the Bible, that my belief is based on my personal relationship with God. And unless you're there in the park with me every morning and experiencing God the way I am, you have no right to talk about disagree with and have spoken against and urged others to do so, and you know that, Bob Lassiter. You know I've done that. But for you to have the arrogance to say that you know my relationship
Rabbi,
to God.
This very hour you call the story of Noah and the ark God's wisdom.
Yes, it is.
And then you call the Bible love.
Corruption. Yes, God had enough love to show us that corruption will destroy society. And it will. And it is right now. And I'm not talking...
Sir, nobody needed a God to figure that one out.
Well, you know what? It's taken us a long time. And guess what? With a God and with a Bible, we still haven't figured it out, have we? Have we? Have we still figured it out?
Oh, I think most of us have, sir.
No, I don't. I think most of us haven't.
We're just too damn lazy to do anything about it, but we all know it, sir.
Maybe I agree with you one time. Maybe you're right. Maybe we do know what's right, and we are too damn lazy to do anything about it. So don't lay it on God. Lay it on us.
Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
The fact that you said that it's your choice of having a personal relationship with God is not so. You cannot escape it. We do not have a choice in having a personal relationship with God. He is constantly around us, influencing through our experiential experience with others, ourselves, nature. Intuitively, He's also trying to tell us at times, and intellectually, He tells us what is beautiful and what is not. And,
well, maybe there's something else that's telling you about it, Van. It's called your conscience.
I like
and your own intelligence. 2 o'clock, 1 hour yet to go. Please, whatever.
Thank you, Van.
Not venture very far.
News Radio 970, WFLA, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater. Lock it in. Then tear off the knob.
The hour of 2 o'clock. Welcome back. Hour number 3 on a Tuesday, July 19th, 1988. Third and final hour with me, Lassiter, on News Radio 970, WFLA, and my guest in studio, Rabbi Jan Bresky. Back to the phones we go. Tom and Holiday. Tom, you're on the air at WFLA.
Yeah. Rabbi, do you get as frustrated as I do when a secular humanist like Bob here call you arrogant for proselytizing?
Wait a second. Is there something wrong with being a secular humanist, sir?
Excuse me?
Is there something wrong with being a secular humanist?
No, I'm just identifying that you yourself do proselytize a religion.
No, I don't, sir.
You don't?
No.
Oh, I think you spend a great deal of time trying to convince people of your views, and I think that's fine.
Well, what this bozo is trying to put forth on the air that you obviously haven't caught yet is that, first of all, he's trying to tag me as a secular humanist. Then he's trying to tag secular humanism as a religion.
Wait a minute. You're denying that you're a secular humanist?
There is no such thing as a secular humanist in terms of an organized group of thought, sir. There are people who have put together a pamphlet called the Humanist Manifesto, in which some of them have some very damned good ideas, and some of them are hopeless daydreamers.
So it's not.
And I don't know of anyone, sir, absolutely no one, who subscribes to every last comma in the Humanist Manifesto. And, sir, I suggest to you that of the 17 tenets of the Humanist Manifesto, you would find at least 12 of them to be your very thoughts.
But do you believe it to be a religion, yes or no?
No, sir.
Then how do you explain this?
And, of course, I want that different money in the schools, too. Well, I want that different Pledge of Allegiance. That offends my religious beliefs, my secular humanist religious beliefs. It deeply offends them. My child should have to be exposed to that, should he?
Well, what's it going to be, Bob?
What do you mean what's it going to be, jerk?
Well, is it a religion, or are you a liar, or what?
No, sir, I frequently talk with my tongue in my cheek instead of up my ass like you do.
Bob,
Let us go on to Don in Carrollwood. Don in Carrollwood, you're on the air at WFLA.
Hi. First of all, Rabbi, in just short form, for us who don't know, what is a rabbi? I mean, what makes a rabbi a rabbi?
Well, rabbi, the literal meaning is great teacher, and you have to study, you have to go through regular college and get a secular degree, and then you go on 5 years after that studying Judaism and its relationship to other religions.
So then, a rabbi is the equivalent of what, depending on the interpretation, a preacher or a priest or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought that, but I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Now, I understood you to say a while ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you say that you don't believe all of what's in the Bible, but you do believe in your personal relationship with God? Is that right?
I don't believe every word of the Bible is without conflict, without problems. I do believe that much of the Bible is inspired by God, but the bulk of my faith comes from my personal relationship with God, yes.
Then how do you suppose that you personally, for the moment, would ever pass along anything other than your own whatever? I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Rabbi Bresky.
Bresky.
Yes, sir.
All right. How can you pass along, if that's true, anything other to your people or to the people you wish to?
Well, I teach courses in the Bible. I teach about the Jewish religion, but the main thing that I try to do is invite people to have their own relationship with God by praying to God and by listening and having an experience and relationship with God.
Well, Rabbi, let me tell you, I see, as having read a fair amount of the Bible with, and I'm not sure why I read it at certain times, other than I suppose we all get beset by this loneliness syndrome at certain points in life, and you look to see if there is an answer in the Bible. And all I found when I read it was, it appeared to me that the Old Testament was nothing more than a set of very important rules and regulations.
Do you pray to God?
To operate a society in the desert with a lot of rogues running around.
Right. Bash the Bible Day.
And a lot of very...
Right. Bash the Bible Day.
Pardon me?
Bash the Bible Day. Do you pray to God?
No, I don't.
Why?
I don't see a purpose
Why?
behind it.
Do you think there's anything greater than ourselves?
Pardon
me? He just asked you a valid question. What would he pray for?
You don't think there's anything greater than ourselves?
Well, aren't you going to answer his question?
I'm asking him a question. Do you think there's anything greater?
He asked you one first. What should he pray for?
You should pray to the power, source, and being who is greater than ourselves.
For what?
Wisdom, strength, the ability to become a better person.
I assume if you didn't have wisdom, it's because he doesn't want you to.
Do you allow people to answer questions here, or you just yell at people? I'm giving you the answer to the question.
No, I hold conversations. I don't listen to lectures, sir. If I wanted you on here to lecture, I would have introduced you and left the studio.
Fine. Then I will answer the question. What should you pray for?
Yes.
Compassion, strength, the ability to live a better and more decent life.
Well, I assume that God doesn't want you to have compassion and strength if you don't have it.
I can only listen to one of you. Which one?
How do you know I don't already have those things?
I don't.
Okay.
I know, though, that you came on bashing the Bible and won. I know...
Excuse me. I didn't say anything wrong. I said, and I didn't bash it, I said that in reading it, it was very, very clear to me that the Bible was a set of excellent rules for a society living in a desert community where there was no organized law enforcement, and I was about to say that it also gives some incredibly good rules for health.
Do you feel you have a spiritual life? Define. Do you think, other than making material things, other than making money to buy or sell material things, do you believe that there's another life that we should lead called a spiritual life?
On Earth?
Right here on Earth. Yeah. Being close to God, learning more about what the world is about, ethics and morals, love, compassion, forgiveness.
In this day and age, no, I do not. Because we aren't in control as individuals. We are only in control of the people that are close to us. To those people, I make my, if you want to call it that, spiritual contributions. I'm a fantastic husband. I'm a good provider. I'm good to the people that are around me. The ones that aren't good to me, I treat them in kind. There's nothing that I'm very happy with my life. I'm very settled. I don't see that I need to branch forth and find some other area of confusion when I don't have one already. But I don't see the need for it. I mean, from what I've seen, if the Bible was in fact originally written and intended and being pursued as a method of calmness, it's not working because
I think the major method of calmness and peace and self-security comes in prayer and knowing that whoever you are and wherever you are, there is a God who loves and cares about you.
Why is that important to you?
I think it's crucial to me.
Why?
I think it helps me to survive.
What if it were taken away? I mean, what if you found out tomorrow that God was really the name of a we're really talking apples and oranges because you're talking intellectually, and I was trained intellectually to answer these questions and debate these things, but I think that what I'm talking now is more spiritually. I don't think Rabbi, you can. Can I just finish? I don't think you can take away from a person a relationship that a person happens to have with God. But isn't spiritual relationships, aren't they as individuals' fingerprints?
Yes,
therefore,
absolutely.
How can you suppose for 1 minute that you could ever, if in fact I wished to believe, and if I in fact had a spiritual relationship of my own even with God,
yes,
in the sense that you mean it, how would you ever think that you could influence or somehow enhance or improve that relationship by telling me of your relationship? You're a different human being.
If you had that relationship with God, you don't need me. My work's done already.
Then why do I hear so much about you, and I don't mean you as an individual, but I mean you as a religion. If I'm happy and settled and my life is pretty good, which it is, why am I constantly besieged with all the yous in the world?
I don't understand that. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't you accept the fact, in other words, that let's assume for the moment that what I'm telling you is true, that I'm very satisfied, I'm a nice guy, and things are going pretty good for me. Not great. I'm not a financial success particularly, but I'm a success in my own lifestyle. I'm very calm. Everything in my life is pretty much roses for the most part.
Well, Don, there is an answer to that. The only logical answer to it is, and whether or not it's true, I don't know that I will ever know, but the logical answer to it is that the believer is insecure in his own beliefs and consequently needs those around him to reinforce them.
That seems to be it.
See, I must be pretty arrogant, Bob.
Well, Rabbi,
I mean, I must be a pretty arrogant, judgmental person for you to come on and say that I'm so insecure.
That's not what I said at all.
Oh, that's exactly what you said.
I will be delighted, sir, to tell you exactly what I said. I said the logical answer is, and whether or not it is true, I don't know if I will ever know. But the logical answer is precisely what I said, isn't it, Rabbi?
The logical
isn't it, Rabbi?
Isn't
it, Rabbi?
No.
Yes, it is. Would you like me to play back the tape, Rabbi?
The logical
Would you like me to play back the tape, Rabbi?
The logical answer
Rabbi, is that not what I said? Yes or no?
Yes, but the logic...
Thank you, Rabbi.
I disagree with you. I think the logical... And you just made a big issue on nothing, by the way. The logical answer is that a person who has gained the benefits of these things would like to share it with others. Well, that's the logical answer.
Rabbi, I think what has to happen is religion has to accept the fact that there are people that out there that are like me that don't have the need for this type of a crutch or whatever. And
do you think I have a crutch, sir?
Pardon me?
Do you think this is a crutch?
Well, I perceive it as that, yes.
That is what Freud said, and I again say to you that Freud was basically wrong. Well, and I don't think that I believe in God or have a relationship with God because it is a crutch. I believe it is real. And unless you are a psychoanalyst, or unless you know me better than anyone else in the world, you cannot tell me that my relationship with God is not real.
Rabbi, very few people have read Freud. Damn few people amongst us in the general community have read Freud. When we talk common sense, sir.
No, when you talk greatly influenced by three thinkers, Freud, Kant, and Marx. Whether you like it or not, this is the genre, this is the discussion, this is the type of thinking that goes on in the modern world.
Well, sir, there was a great... Then I suppose those three people had a great deal of common sense along with
They had a great deal of things to say which were important, but what most people don't realize, they had a number of critics which proved that much of what they said was not true.
Rabbi, you mentioned that maybe something to the effect that maybe I know you better than you. One thing I do know in listening to your show, and it must be kind of frustrating, I've listened where Bob and or the other callers, mainly Bob, I think, has asked questions that you really did. You evaded totally the crux of the question.
All right, why don't you restate the questions I evaded, and I'll try to answer them.
I don't recall.
Well, why don't you restate one question I evaded, and I'll try to give you an answer.
I'd be delighted to.
Sure, let's go.
It's the question that we started the show with, in essence, which was something to the effect of, then why does God turn his back on most of the people on the face of this earth if he runs around blessing everybody who lives in America?
I don't accept the premise of the question from a philosophical point of view. I don't accept the premise of the question. It's like the question, how long have you beaten your wife? So I don't even accept...
No, it's not like that question at all, because you usually ask that question. You usually ask that question to somebody that you know has not beaten his wife.
I do not accept any of the premises of that question. I do
not believe... Whether or not you accept them is irrelevant, Rabbi. The fact of the matter is that this earth that you want to attribute to God as having made is not suitable for life in all areas.
And
yet this God that you want to attribute to creating man put people, apparently, where they cannot survive.
We are partners with God to make any section of this earth a paradise. We are partners with God to do that,
sir,
and we
I've
fail
got some
to do it.
Tragic news for you. God has worked against you because he has set this earth up in such a way that any part of it cannot be a paradise.
Any part. And whatever is lacking in one part can come from another part. It's we as human beings who choose not to cooperate and not to make this world better.
Sir, how are you going to transfer soil that's good for growing wheat to an area of the world?
You don't need to grow wheat everywhere in the world. You can transfer wheat, you know? We have ships and planes and stuff.
Sir, this world is what? According to your book, 5,000 years old. According to the way I think,
always go back
millions, billions of years old.
The issue.
Speak to the issue. It is only in the last handful of years in the world's history that it would have been possible to transfer the needs of life from one place of the earth to another place on the earth, if indeed they existed.
And why don't we do it, Bob? Why don't we do it?
Don't give me that crap about why don't we do it. You are begging what I just said. You are ignoring what I just said.
If you had any knowledge, Bob, which you lack in, you would know that the population of the earth was about 1/15 of what it was now today in biblical times, and that there was enough then to share, and enough then that civilizations contacted one another to share, that things were traded from India to the Middle East and then into Europe back then in biblical days when people thought they couldn't get from one place to the other. And if you knew the facts, you would know that was true.
If you knew the facts, sir, you would know the trade was not very widespread at that particular point in history.
Gordon, who is an expert, not someone like you who is a self-appointed expert in every subject.
Your arrogance and continued belief upon that book lead you to believe that there wasn't any life more than 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. There was,
I don't believe that. Who the hell are you to tell me that?
Well, then if you know that life existed 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200,000 years ago, you know damned right well that there was not trade 200,000 years ago. And you know that there were people who were living in places of the earth that could not provide them with the most basic human needs.
Rabbi?
Yes, sir.
Final question.
Sure.
What is it? I mean, I don't see a positive answer to this question. Maybe you can enlighten me somehow, but I tend to doubt it. In all of its...
Sir, if you tend to doubt it, don't ask me.
Well, but I'm
if you tend to doubt it,
you are a learned person.
Look, so far in this conversation, you said you tend to doubt it. You said that I have a projection which is unreal, that in some way I am neurotic. Sir, if you come in with that attitude, don't bother me with the question.
You only want people who are going to swallow everything you say as gospel?
No,
pardon the expression.
No, Bob, I'm not like the talk show hosts who cut off people that disagree with them on a daily basis.
I'll rephrase the question then.
Yes, why don't you do it in a way that's not insulting, since you have your act together as you say that you do? Why don't you form one question to me that's not insulting if you are so together and so happy and such a good and wonderful husband?
Gee, I really am glad that you don't second-guess people and insult them, Rabbi.
For all of its efforts, Rabbi, what has organized religion in as far back as you wish to go, I suppose, up through this date, which is at least, we know, what, 3,000-4,000 years? Is that right?
It's about that.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, but somewhere in that time frame, if in fact the answer is, or the message is so correct and so right and to be utilized, then what is it that has stopped it from catching on to the point that it has truly had an impact upon this world and this earth that would cause us not to have a lot of the problems we have today?
I think that we've lost the very essence of what organized religion's supposed to be about. And that essence is that God is real, that prayer or meditation is a vehicle of knowing God.
But why doesn't it
may
work?
I finish? And that the ethics, the worldwide ethics we should be practicing is love, toleration for those who are different, and non-harm.
Rabbi,
why that hasn't caught on is because people have used and abused religion in order to gain power and money.
Well, then, don't you feel that its weak sides maybe are at least equal to its strong sides?
I think it has the potential to be great, and I think it has not realized its potential.
But that wasn't an answer, though.
That is an answer. Look, I'm not going to take this Bob Lassiter-isms, you're avoiding the issue crap, from him or from you. I told you, sir, I gave you a straight, intelligent answer. Organized religion has the capacity, if it would go back to its original message, to be a very great influence on humanity. The fact is, it has not lived up to its potential. Do you understand that? Excuse me, but do you understand what I said? Is there some aspect of what I just said that you don't understand?
I do not understand the words you put together, no.
Well, then, sir, I would advise that you go back to grammar school, because they were plain English.
WFLA.
Yes, sir. If you think the rabbi is arrogant, you're probably going to think I am, too, for second-guessing. But I think there's two basic problems with both of you when you're discussing things. One is that the rabbi has no real foundation. He's trying to defend something that he doesn't really believe in. Secondly, when you're speaking about God in the Bible, Bob's attacking things. You're attacking things that you're not really informed of. You're misquoting.
Where have I misquoted, sir?
Well, I listened to you a few years ago, and you used a certain story out of the Bible concerning Lot. I'm surprised the rabbi let you get away with your rendition of it. But nowhere...
No, it's not my rendition of it, sir. It's what it says in the book.
You know what
I might have paraphrased, but nonetheless, it's what it says in the book.
What chapter is that in, Bob?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Genesis 19. Nowhere in that chapter will you find anywhere that God told Lot to do what he did with his daughter in sending them out to the Sodomites.
Gee, which version of the Bible are you reading, sir?
You read it in any one you want.
I beg your pardon.
Okay, when you show me the verse, I'll read it to you, and you can read me your...
Well, unfortunately, I just don't have my Bible with me this afternoon, but I know what I've read.
No, you know what you think you've read.
No, I know
what
I've read.
Why don't you read the verse and educate both of us?
Okay. So I'm surprised that you let him get by with that and saying...
Well, why don't you read the verse?
Okay. And there came two angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face to the ground. Then later on in the chapter... And the people of the city found that there were men in his house, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have two daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. Then we find later that the angel smote the men with blindness. But nowhere did God tell him to do that. As a matter of fact, the reason the angels...
why was Lot saved when Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed?
God chose, out of his sovereignty, to save Lot out.
Why?
Not because of anything Lot had done.
I beg your pardon.
That's exactly why God chose to save him. Because of his righteousness.
Where does that say that? You're looking in the book of James in the New Testament where he calls Lot a righteous man.
Well, the book of James has nothing to do with the book of Genesis, as you know.
Pardon me?
The book of James has nothing to do with the book of Genesis.
Lot being referred to as righteous in God's eyes, correct?
I'm looking it up right now.
As a matter of fact, caller, if memory serves me, again, I don't have my Bible in front of me, but if memory serves me, that very story that you relate is the story that is related to demonstrate Lot's righteousness, and therefore that's why God spared he and his family.
No.
Do you believe...
What do you mean, no, sir? Then what's the purpose of the story?
Mr. Lassiter is right. Do you believe that righteousness is nothing but filthy rags? Is that your favorite quote? I see. Okay. So this
what man can do, man being good in and of himself, yes, that's what I believe.
Matt, is there another example?
Wait, I got a great one.
Excuse me a second.
I had a better one.
Is there another example in there of Lot's righteousness?
Of Lot's righteousness? It doesn't say much about Lot.
I know, sir. So therefore, a reasonable man would conclude, if that is the only example of Lot, and he was saved amongst all the people in the city, then therefore he was doing what God would have wanted him to do, i.e. send out his daughters instead of a man.
The book the verse that you're using that calls Lot righteous says that he was vexed by what he saw going on in this.
Let me ask you a question.
He was saved because Abraham pleaded for his life.
Sir, he was vexed by what he saw going on. What did he see going on in Sodom and Gomorrah? Homosexuality, sir?
Yes, sir.
And what did Lot do? Said, no, it's better for you to rape my daughters. It is better for you to rape my daughters than my male friends here.
That is a Middle Eastern custom.
Instead, sir, of saying what would really be righteous, get the hell away from my door. You're not going to touch anybody.
That's right.
That's not what he said, sir.
I know that.
Let me ask you this: Are our deeds?
Rabbi,
wait. Are our deeds like righteous? Our good deeds are like filthy rags, right?
Correct.
So it doesn't matter really what we do. So that if Jimmy Swaggart went cruising for prostitutes, that really doesn't matter because our deeds are like righteous rags, or like filthy rags.
No, the verse that says our deeds are righteousness is as filthy rags. Is showing what? It's showing that what we do in and of ourselves in trying to earn righteousness and trying to earn heaven or God's approval.
Well,
sir,
this is where Lassiter. This is where Lassiter and I agree.
What a tragedy, sir! You haven't spent as much time thinking about what you read as you have spent memorizing it.
I agree with Lassiter 100%. I don't think that religion is an excuse to just hang around and wait for a second coming or wait for something to happen when it's our responsibility to work in partnership with God to make the world better.
True. But
why should we do that if our deeds are as filthy rags? What's the sense in doing anything right? We had a guy who was Secretary of the Interior who said, what's the sense in saving the forest? When the apocalypse comes, it's going to burn down anyhow.
That doesn't mean that I approve of what James Watt had to say, but the fact that we're looking towards what's happening after we die does not change the fact that we should be acting actively while we're still on Earth.
Why?
That's the very reason that you do what you do. Why do you tell people about your...
Because I don't believe the way you do. I don't believe our deeds are filthy rags. I believe our deeds are of utmost importance to God. Utmost importance.
Well, I will use a couple verses, but you wouldn't agree with them either. The Bible.
Maybe not.
No, sir. We're not impressed with anybody who parrots things out of a book. We're impressed with people who have thought about what it is that they're parroting. Off we go to Gene in Kenneth City. Gene, you're on the air, WFLA.
Boy, Bob, with a hot seat today. You hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Gene.
Bob, what I want to ask the rabbi.
Well, ask him. Don't tell me. Talk to him.
Okay, Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
You said that you are a teacher.
I try.
And you were taught all about the Jewish religion.
Yes.
How about the Jewish faith? What were you taught about the Jewish faith?
Very little.
Very little.
Yes, sir.
Well, you know, the Bible, if you can believe the Bible says if we don't have faith, it's sin.
That's correct.
All right, now what I wanted to ask you about, you and Bob both, you're in on this, Bob, too, and all of your callers. You told the last man, go back to grammar school. Well, I think that all of you people should go back to grammar school.
All you people should go back to grammar school?
Yeah, and I told or get down to a library or whatever, get the books open, and see what it says in there about the word God.
Yeah, Bob, all you people should go back to grammar school. Remember that, all right?
All right, now you should really look this word God up, because you know that the word God is an idol. And I don't see how a God, no matter what it may be, or how a Lord, how many they be, can help me. Now, all I heard you talk
I bet you don't.
Now, Rabbi, all I heard you talk about was this and that and that. Not once did I hear you say anything about the Almighty and His salvation. Not once. Now, I would like to ask you, I talked to you quite a number of months ago.
All you people.
I had asked you, and you very abruptly shut me off the phone.
I don't know why I did such a thing.
I wanted to ask you, what is the name of your God?
Thank you, I just answered.
Okay, now I want to ask you another question. What is the definition for Exodus 3:14 in I am?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I am what I will be, and as I show myself to each person.
Okay, now tell it to me in another word.
What's the point, Paul?
Not teach.
Isn't taking care of us and all these, all that's being...
Yeah, I know what my question was, right.
Yeah. Okay, well, I believe that God works through us, and evil is confusion, and...
Caller, do you believe God is...
a very evil man.
Caller, do you believe that...
Very confused.
Do you believe that God has forsaken you?
No, because I know God, and I work God's will like the both of you are.
What is so wrong, Bob, with a person coming on your radio show and saying that he knows God and he doesn't feel forsaken by God? Do you have any objection to that?
No, not at all.
God just would ask him to prove it. That's all.
God works through us, and it's the people who are confused and that don't know God.
So that's answering my question about why he turns his back on the majority of people in the world?
Yeah, that's
and always has?
Because they're confused, and they live in that confusion. They don't know. They don't. If you
so the people in Ethiopia are evil people.
Let me ask you a question.
The people I just asked you one. The people in Ethiopia are evil people?
No, they don't have a choice.
Oh, they don't have a choice.
If they knew God and they had a choice, every person would choose to do what's right.
Well, wait a second. How do you know that Ethiopians don't know God?
Because they're suffering.
Oh, because I see. So God has sent them this terrible, awful land and a terrible, awful drought.
I don't believe that. I don't believe suffering's a punishment.
We're talking about humanity and...
I don't think suffering is a punishment. Wait.
In the mood for
Bob,
it.
can I ask you one question before 3 o'clock? Do you believe in God?
Your God knows.
No. Don't do that.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, at the top of the page it says the Bob Lassiter Show, and I have just introduced Diane.
You don't think I have the right, after 2.5 hours of harassment, to ask you that question? Do you believe in God? You are God.
I just answered your question,
Do you
sir.
have a relationship with God?
I just answered your question,
Do you have
sir.
a relationship
How can I
with God?
possibly have a relationship with something I don't believe in, sir? Diane in Tampa, you're on the air at WFLA.
Hello, Moose. As I've been sitting here listening, I have been growing increasingly ashamed of the rabbi who has been preaching love in one breath and out of another breath has been so terribly sarcastic and critical of the people who don't believe the same way he does.
I don't find that to be true at all. I think there is a thing as self-respect caller. When someone calls in your radio show or calls to you and insults you 3 times in 3 questions, I don't take that crap. I don't expect anybody to take that crap.
Well, I thought that there was
read the Sermon on the Mount of the Beatitudes,
the other cheek.
Well, excuse me? That's not my testament, excuse me. It's not my testament, and I don't believe in that.
You recommended the reading of it.
Yes, and I think that you can be a loving person and still defend your rights to self-esteem. Yes, I believe that.
Yeah, you can have your right to self-esteem, but not necessarily stepping on other people to show it.
But they can step on you. They should be able to step on you, and you should just sit there and take it.
They have, when someone...
Well, you know what, miss? My people have done that for the last 200 years, and you know what? It doesn't work.
When someone disagrees with me, they have as much right to their belief as I have to mine. That's where one of our major differences is. Now, I have never developed a personal relationship with this so-called God.
So-called God? Insult 1. Keep going. Keep going. You are saying that I don't have a relationship with God as I reported that I had.
You don't mind
and
insulting
therefore you're
people's
criticizing.
God. You don't mind insulting people's God, sir?
I don't remember insulting people's God.
Is the Bible the literal word of God?
That's not insulting people's God.
Oh, I beg your pardon. It is, sir.
That I have a different opinion is not an insult.
Oh, I see. So Diane insults, you have
No,
opinion.
Diane came on and said that she was terribly disappointed in me, and the first question she had was that I really don't have an experience with God, and I should turn the other cheek as she steps on my face, and she's a very open person. Go ahead, Diane. I want to hear some more openness.
I did not say that you did not have a personal relationship with God.
That's exactly what you just said. That's exactly what you just said. That is exactly what you just said.
That I did not have
so-called personal relationship with God.
Yeah, that's her opinion, sir.
I did not say that the rabbi did not. I said I do not have a personal relationship
with a so-called God.
Right, her opinion, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, and as far as you saying that people being influenced by reading Freud and Marx and so forth, well, I drew a conclusion as a young person, not even a teenager yet, that in my opinion, I felt that man created God rather than God creating man. That God is something that man frequently has a need for. And there are those of us that are quite capable of being good, decent, caring human beings without having to have a relationship with God. I can still get the thrill of the green of the grass, the blue of the sky, the wonder of the trees. I can do good for my fellow man, which I do believe that I do. I have never knowingly hurt anyone. And I can do all this without having a personal relationship with God. Furthermore, when I am faced with people who are critical of my belief, I do not turn around and spew venom as I've heard you do. So I'm not so sure that...
No, they just have so-called views of God. They just have so-called views of God, right?
Pardon?
They just have so-called views of God.
Well, what about the Baptist, sir, that takes the Bible literally? I guess that's just, so-called divine book.
He disagrees with me.
Right, he has a so-called divinely inspired book.
with me. I never said that.
Well, I know you didn't use those words, sir, but that's in essence what you have said. His so-called divinely inspired Word of God.
How is it that the stories in the Bible are
you know what, I'm done with this Bible bashing. You apparently have not heard what I've said now five times. Five times I've said that my faith is not based on the Bible alone. It is based on a personal relationship with God.
And I grant that you, sir, feel that you have a personal relationship with whatever this is that you conceive to be God. A higher power.
But it couldn't possibly be God, could it? Because there's no such thing. It couldn't possibly be God, could it?
It is your concept.
Is it possible that it could be God? Is it possible?
Concept. I don't believe that.
I'm not talking about concept. I'm talking about a real relationship. Is it possible that I and other people have a real relationship with a real being force power called God? Is that possible?
I don't believe there is a supreme force of any sort. But you can believe that you have a relationship with something that you have conceived in your own mind.
And you're not judgmental.
No, because I'm saying you have a right to that, but you don't have.
I have a right to be neurotic.
Against the wall and be sarcastic and critical.
I have a right to be neurotic. Is that correct? I have a right to be neurotic.
If that's what you want to call it, I didn't call it that.
Well, that's what Freud called it. He said it was anything.
Freud isn't here today, sir.
That you
Freud isn't here
today.
Mr.
Lassiter,
No,
anything
me,
that
Rabbi.
you conceive in your
Freud
mind
isn't
which doesn't
here today
exist.
to defend himself.
Anything that
is
you
he, Rabbi?
conceive in your mind
is
which
he, Rabbi?
doesn't. No, anything that
then
you
why
conceive,
do you constantly bring up his name?
Because anything that you conceive in your mind that doesn't exist is defined a neurosis. Period.
If you want to consider yourself neurotic, that's
no, I don't. I consider myself to be having a relationship with God. And I don't consider you to be as pure and gentle and loving and accepting as you pretend to be, lady.
Well, that's because that's your right to judge me as such. I have been told...
No, you came on and said I was a big disappointment. You started by judging me, lady. And I don't like it.
Now,
I don't like it. And I can be a loving, caring, tolerant person who doesn't want to come on the radio and take crap from someone who doesn't know me.
Crap. Now, see... Now, have I spoken to you that way? I most certainly have not.
You have, but in a very gentle, loving, caring way.
But I don't call what you believe in crap.
Basically, you did, lady, but you did it in such a nice way you almost got everybody to believe you.
Obviously, you can't be reasoned with.
Nope, not me.
All right, well, thank you, Moose.
Thank you, Diane. John in Tampa. John, you're on the
Thank you, Moose. Thank you, Moose.
Hello.
Hello, John.
Yeah, I just want to ask the rabbi 2 or 3 questions. If there were no Torah or no Bible, would the rabbi be a rabbi?
I would still be someone who had a relationship with God. I doubt I would be called a rabbi.
Rabbi, excuse me, how would you know about rabbinical schools and the establishment of religions and how...
I did not learn about God through rabbinical school. I did not learn about God through the Bible. I learned about God through personal relationship.
Okay, then you're saying that the Bible was not necessary in order for you to form your relationship with God.
I've been trying to say that for the last 3 hours. Yes, sir.
All right, fine. I understand that. Now,
Good.
I want to ask you, when you pray to God, do you hope to change His mind about a prior decision?
No.
I say, what do you hope to accomplish when you pray?
I hope to accomplish getting enough strength to get through the day.
All right.
Something God apparently hadn't thought about giving you anyway.
All right.
Why do you say that?
Well, what are you praying to Him for? If you don't believe you have the strength to get through the day, then I guess God didn't give it to you. So now you're going to ask Him to change His mind or to go back and do something that He had apparently overlooked.
I'm going to ask Him for the blessings that He has given me in the past.
Okay. What does a child, for example, that is dying in a hospital and there's many hundreds of thousands, how do they ask for the strength to get through the day if they cannot communicate that need to quote God?
Well, as I said earlier, I saw such a child just a few months ago, and she did communicate that need. And despite the most horrible circumstances, more horrible than you can imagine, she made it through the day, and she finally did die. She never lost her dignity. She never lost her faith.
But God gave her a few more days to suffer. Because somebody prayed and asked for, hey, God, give this child a couple more days to suffer here.
I told you my reaction. I told you that it's not out of the range of what we should do to say to God, this is wrong. And I said to God, concerning this girl, this is wrong. I said that. And I feel that. I feel the way he treated that girl was wrong.
He mulled it over for a few days and then took her.
All right, let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
Have you read Rabbi Kushner's book, Why
Yes.
Bad Things Happen to Good People?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rabbi Kushner came to the conclusion that God really does not interfere or have too much power, if, I read the book, to change these physical laws that he has put into motion here.
Right, Rabbi Kushner is basically a deist.
Then what is the point of trying to get him to intervene in anything?
I don't think we should pray so much to get what we want. I think we should pray in order that we do what God wants us to do, in order that we perform whatever mission or whatever task God's given us.
Well,
wait a second. In other words, you pray to God and you say, God, please make me do what you want me to do?
Make me a better servant, because I have the choice not to be.
Right, but
so you pray to God so that he will take away your free will.
No, you submit your free. The greatest act of faith is to submit your free will to God.
I mean, it's kind of like, I suppose, the slave going to the master and saying, please, master, please take away my desire to not work today.
No, there's a very famous passage in Judaism, serve not the master because you are afraid, but serve him out of love and obedience. That's the way I approach God.
Well,
let me be your servant. Let me serve you out of love and obedience, because that's what I choose to do.
Well, sir, at this point, I've got to break in.
One more thing.
No, sir, you've had three one more things, and unfortunately, I've got Don Richards standing by in the WFLA news booth, who does not have time for one more thing.
I would pray for things that were things that were for other people, and each time my prayers were denied, and after many times like that, I began to think to myself, I'm going to read the Bible on my own. And so I read it through 3 times, and I started on the 4th time, and I could not go through 4 times because...
Could you get to the point? I'm really running out of time.
There were so many contradictions, but one thing that was all the way through the Bible was that if you believed in Jesus, you would have life everlasting.
No, it's not all the way through the Bible. It actually comes in the last third, right?
What I was referring to is if you believed in Jesus, that you would have life everlasting in heaven. And that's all he ever promised, that there were not things on this earth that you could pray for to receive an immediate answer. And
I beg your pardon. There is that passage in there about when 2 or more of you get together here on earth and ask that it be done, it will be done. Remember?
Yes, I remember that. But what I'm saying to you is that it's not for us to know, and there are so many people that get something out of religion, whatever it is.
Oh, I quite agree. I quite agree.
But it's...
Get justification to hate people of color, get justification to look down at women, get justification
compassion,
to go on
hope,
war,
love,
well,
good feelings, wanting to make society a better place to live in. Yeah, there are a lot of things to be gained by religion
in the Bible,
and by God.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the vast majority of people who get their strength and guidance out of the Bible get the kind of strength and guidance I was talking about, not the kind that you're
How about
talking
the
about.
strength and guidance directly from God?
In the Bible, there was also a
How about the kind of strength directly from God?
How about it, sir? What about it?
In the Bible, there was a soldier by the name of Paul who persecuted Christians.
What would you say that people get strength, compassion, love,
Why are you ignoring this caller?
good feeling
one day
from God?
Paul was riding through the woods, and after persecuting Christians, and the heavens opened up, and Paul,
3,000-4,000 times.
why dost thou persecute me? And from that moment on, he became a different person.
Well, that's what the story says. Neither you nor I even know that Paul existed, do we?
Well, I'm not. You see,
neither you nor I know that Paul ever existed. Do
we
you?
can say to ourselves that Paul never existed.
Well, I guess the answer is yes, but we don't. We just want to believe that Paul existed.
What is it?
And even though we know that we don't know that he existed, nonetheless we're going to pretend as though he did with some absurd story that has nothing to do with anything.
That you're a better person? Does it prove that the human beings are so much more superior because they're infinitely intelligent enough not to believe in a higher power, or does it just prove?
Well, Mark, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to answer the question that you haven't asked, the one that you gave to my producer that says, I don't understand where Bob is coming from.
Right.
I'd be delighted to tell you, Mark. I am sick to death of people who worship a god, of people who would attribute to a god some of the most hideous, some of the most horrible human traits possible to imagine.
And do you think I'm one of those people, Lassiter? You know me. You know I preach against that. You think I'm one of those people?
You've already done it on my show, sir.
Okay, fine. Then you think I'm one of those people.
You have already justified attributing to God a story that would have destroyed the world by flood and destroyed all the innocents in that world and call it God's wisdom. That's not wisdom, sir. That's the kind of thing that a man would have come up with, not the kind of thing that a God would have come up with.
Do you think that you can derive wisdom, strength, compassion, and hope from God?
No, sir. Not your God.
How about your God?
I don't have a God, sir. Not in the sense that you would have a God.
I think you can get those things from God.
And you can also get justification for hideous behavior.
I don't think so, not from God.
And then you can also give up your self-respect and say, well, it's a nice story with God's wisdom.
No, I didn't give up my self-respect. I didn't let the moose lady get to me. I have self-respect.
You didn't let the moose lady get to you?
Oh, no, I let the moose lady have it because I don't give up self-respect because I am a religious man.
Sir, you've given up your self-respect when you attribute stories like that to God.
That the corruption of the world will destroy the world, that only makes God better.
God destroyed the world.
No, our own corruption, which we chose,
was innocent.
Our own corruption, which we chose, will destroy the good and the bad.
Tomorrow, Richard Dortch, 12 noon. Be here. Thank you, Rabbi Jan Bresky.
Thank you, Bob.